got some great minds in the house today. This is Scott Harney from Esoteric Guides, and we're doing our annual
Very
Esoteric
good.
Guides prediction show. And let me just mute everyone. And so the thing is, it's been a really bad year for a lot of people. Um, Aside from having a nuclear war, I don't think things could get any worse. Genocides, wars, more wars, a breakdown of international institutions like the ICC, and now we have unexplained drones and a spike in UAPs. So we're hoping our guest tonight could, shed a little light on what's going on and what to expect in 2025. I think so. I think the biggest from we have a number of astrologers, including Robert Thibodeau and Steve Popiotic, and we want to talk about Pluto and Aquarius and how this is going to also affect the chart of the United States. And as we all know, the United States is going through its Pluto return, which began in 2022. So every 248 years, Pluto goes through its cycle, and now we are going through it. So as everyone knows, it's a planet of transformation, death, but death not necessarily in a bad way, sort of a transformative way. So we're going to find out, okay, how is this going to affect the United States? Of course, we are allegedly in the age of Aquarius. Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, which is the planet of constriction, and it's also ruled by Uranus, which is technology and revolution. So, so my opinion of the age of Aquarius, and I'm sure maybe our guests will have different opinions, is it's basically what we're seeing now, which is a sort of a police state, a technological police state. And we're seeing this. I mean, there's cameras everywhere, and that's Uranus, and we get this constriction of Saturn, this need for control. So the question is, a spiritual practitioner, how do we navigate this? It's going to be a bad time, I think, for a lot of people, but a good time for a lot of other people who know how to navigate these energies. And of course, with our guest tonight, we're going to, get some wisdom. So I'm going to give some predictions, and then I want to find out what other people think as well. So my predictions revolve around, I would say, the biggest game changer this year is AI, artificial intelligence. Um, it's creating a dramatic change in the job market. I think industries are going to overnight disappear, and we're going to see more of this in 2025. So I think there's going to be people that embrace it, and there's going to be people that reject it. I said, well, almost we're entering this post-human era, and I think Steve, you're going to talk a little bit about this. So we're going to see more and more of people fusing, humans and AI. We're going to see people sort of becoming almost like, um, yeah, using AI in their everyday life, including maybe even implants and that type of thing. Um, Another issue I think that's going to come up is the role between AI and DMT entities, and I think that's going to be discussed a lot more. Um, what is AI? Who's controlling the mind of AI? Because it definitely has an agenda, no question. Having worked with it, these DMT entities, are they the ghost of the machine? Is it a digital jinn? Um, you know, we know the Silicon Valley crowd's been doing a lot of psychedelics and to include DMT drips to prolong communication with these entities. So the question is, I'm going to leave it out there: is this affecting, you know, our interface right now with this AI, which I think it's going to change the world like nothing else has. Um, and also UAPs, Alan's going to talk about that and Steve's going to talk about that, so my opinion is, the mainstream conversation now is moving toward the fact that these are not extraterrestrial, but they are sort of supernatural events, sort of like traditional accounts of the fairies, with orbs and flying lights. I want to find out what you all think. Even Tucker Carlson now is talking about this on his show. And that was because Jack Fillet's theory that these were interdimensional and not actually extraterrestrial. So, Alan, I definitely want to hear from you on this. And now I think the focus of 2025 really is going to be domestic. Um, as opposed to international. I feel like the US is going to sort of withdraw from the international scene. I could be wrong, but I think the mainstream press really hasn't reported on the BRICS or the impact BRICS will have on the US dollar. And that's, Russia, China, India, Brazil, South Africa, now even Turkey, who are going to start trading in their own currency as opposed to the US dollar. So, yeah, I see that. That's great, Steve. Um, so, I mean, this is going to destroy the US dollar. It has the potential of doing that. So, we're already have a weak economy. There's joblessness. The AI is crushing a lot of industries, and now we have an influx of I don't know, 6, 7 million undocumented workers now who've come over the border, including 200,000 in this year alone that ended up in New York City, who are looking for work. So this is a challenging time. Average America is suffering. Prices are up. Wages are down. But what's the upside? I mean, we have spiritual growth. So we want to hear from our guests, and I'm going to start with Steve Speer. And of course, everyone knows Steve. He's a very visionary artist, and he's holding up some of his artwork now. And Steve, we're thrilled to have you. He also ran for Congress under the Medical Freedom Party. So Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you now, and I want to hear your vision of 2025 and what the hell happened in 2024.
Well, I'm going to start with a Jung quote because I was poking around. I said, Jung at one point said, dissolution demands synthesis. And Jung said, I am always concerned with the pile of wreckage, with the ruins of that which has been, with infantile attempts at something new. The fact is, we have not yet reached the point when things can be put together. We cannot reach it yet because the world is cut in two. So that was Jung, probably in the 40s, and just expressing dismay that the world is cut in two. And we can talk about how this dichotomy of technology and biology and everything is coming to a sort of head. I was at a party last night and people were talking about Neuralink in positive terms, that you could take these, that you could have a wire inserted in your brain and to control things with. And the guy said, oh, we could put a wire in our heads and we can control the mouse. And I'm like, well, is it really worth having a wire in your head to control a mouse? And he's like, well, then people with disabilities can move their legs. And I was like, well, it's a slippery slope, right? So today, actually, just on the news, I saw that Elon Musk, who, sadly we need to talk about a little bit. Elon Musk is Ozempic Santa today. He sent out a tweet with him in a Santa Claus thing, and he's showing off his new physique, his new figure in a Santa outfit because he took Ozempic, right? And this leads to this biological breaching, right? Like, what are people doing? Also today, NVIDIA unveiled a new sort of chip set, I believe, that's called Jetson, and it's a very, very fast chipset. And that's not even quantum computing, right? Uh, so one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is what William Butler Yeats called the Hodos chameleontis, right? That's the road of the chameleon. And what he's talking about is that when images get just, when you're doing a magical work and you're actually inviting images, creative imagination, things to come in, but you can get lost in this Hodos, you can get lost on this road or in this quagmire of imagery with the AI happening, now we're getting lost in this constant, uh, buff buffeting by all this imagery, and what are we actually looking for in this, as Cormac McCarthy called it, and I like to use the term hallucinatory void, right? We're in this hallucinatory void where we have no real anchor, you know what I mean? And that's part of maybe the agenda is to cut us off from our, anchoring to reality. Quantum computing is going to make it really easy to just start throwing up lots of images really quick, lots of weird AI images really quick. And, if you put yourself in a headset, and you start looking through the 3D headset of this VR stuff, you end up in this nightmare zone. And then can they make that the real sort of reality? And so predictions, I'm wondering, like, are people going to start revolting against this? There were the Luddites. I like to always bring up Frank Herbert's one of the things in Dune and one of the Butlerian Jihad. If anybody's familiar with the Butlerian Jihad, that's a kind of a side note in the Dune books where he talks about that's why Dune doesn't have computers, right? Because the AI took over in the Dune universe, and they had a Butlerian Jihad where they destroyed the machines, the computational machines that were throwing up this kind of constant information. And is this information even? You know what I mean? But I was just going to jump because I don't know how much time I have, but I wanted to talk about one of the things that I really want to talk about is sort of the UAP phenomena and the drones a little bit, because I'm going to be very bold here right now, and Alan might be interested. I've come to the conclusion through my many guides and mystic matters. I've been working the crystal ball. UFOs, some of them, one segment of the UFOs are powered by adrenaline. It's adrenaline that's powering these UFOs. It's I go back now because in that I've been doing a lot of work, and if you saw the drawings, I won't pull them up now because I don't feel like it. But I'm putting in a lot of dopamine, adrenaline, and all these kind of hormonal things that prompt people to see things. The excitement of a UFO. The
Steve,
fact.
but show some of your pitches while you're talking. This is really interesting.
Well, okay. I mean, yeah, I can. One of the things we have to look at is the hysterics of it. Well, I was going to talk about Beverly Pascal Randolph here, and that's the adrenaline molecule, and that's actually comedy and tragedy. But I get one of the things I do is I'm like scrying with these drawings to a degree. There's a Tezcatlipoca, and Tezcatlipoca's mescaline molecule, and I think that's adrenaline or dopamine over here. So we have Tezcatlipoca coming through his magic mirror and hypnotizing. That's a personality. And there's Isis, by the way. And then we have just more. Well, these are UAPs, right? I consider those UAPs up there. And one of the things I would like to also mention is Arthur Conan Doyle's The Horror in the Heights. He wrote it in 1917. So those are like UFOs. That's the jellyfish UFOs, the biomechanical UFOs that would be controlled by hormones, right? So we see some of these mechanical UFOs, and there's an interesting one. We see some of these mechanical UFOs flying around, but the question is it a false flag because of the true nature of the UFOs? I believe some of the UFOs, the most important UFOs, are the ones that are biomechanical. And that actually throws us into the Wilhelm Reich realm, right? But in 1917, Arthur Conan Doyle wrote about a pilot who went up in the sky and went above anything the plane had ever gone and ran into these luminescent jellyfish in the sky. So Reich in the 1940s, when he did the door experiment with the uranium in the box, he felt that he brought through a bunch of UFOs, these kind of biomechanical UFOs in the sky. Now, going back to the hormonal thing, we have to remember that Reichs was really interested in sex and the hormones that it produced, right? So that's really important. We have to remember that Aleister Crowley said the industrialization of semen in the 21st century will revolutionize the world. He was not talking about semen per se, I would say, but he was kind of hinting at this hormonal aspect, the control of humanity through that hormonal endocrine system. And we can go down a rabbit hole that I'm not a biologist, but we have lots. So the UAP phenomena creates an adrenaline effect in people. Look, 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 I see it, I see it. Is it circulatory from these things in the sky? Is it just us observing it or actually having a hormonal reaction to it? Or is it prompting a hormonal reaction? And if it prompts a hormonal reaction, we end up in this, again, this hodos chameleontis, this hall of mirrors, because as we have these adrenaline rushes and these endorphin rushes, Alan can probably attest to the celebrity factor of UFOs. People go to see Louis Elizondo, and they're going because it's kind of a herd mentality. They want to see a celebrity. They want to be excited. They want to generate hormones. They want to generate adrenaline, and they want to generate dopamine. They don't know they're doing that, but they are doing that. So when Crowley says the industrialization of semen in the 20th century will revolutionize the world, will revolutionize the 20th century, we have to go back to Pascal Beverly Randolph, who was a precursor to Aleister Crowley talking about sex magic, right? And there's Beverly Pascal Randolph, in my opinion. And there's actually Maria Orsic with her little Bell UFO, right? Because when we're talking about UFOs and UAPs, are we talking about the mechanical UAPs, or are we talking about what I believe is the hidden hand maybe behind what's really going on? Is these hormonally or endocrine, call them a chemical, biochemical, biomechanical beings in the air that are actually, that's the influence. When we watch media, we're not really getting information, we're getting stimulated, right? We're getting stimulated. Does Alan have a question? Because I see Alan raising his
No,
hand.
I was gonna do my bit, but go ahead, finish up, Steve.
Okay. Well, I just wrote a couple notes, and I figured, Plato wrote about in the Philebus. He wrote about pleasure versus wisdom, right? So, are we looking for this kind of pleasure, these stimulations, these biological stimulations, or are we looking for wisdom? Beverly Pascal Randolph, if nobody knows, was an early sex magician. He was a precursor to the sex magician, and he worked with the magic mirror. The magic mirror is, of course, I go to Tezcatlipoca. Tezcatlipoca was Quetzalcoatl's brother. He was the lord of the smoking mirror, smoke and mirrors, medialize. He was the god of the obsidian mirror. We all carry an obsidian mirror in our pocket now. So my prediction is, and then am I moving along,
Yeah,
Scott, or should
yes.
I be done? Should I finish up, Scott?
Yeah, what's your prediction? Give us the one sentence prediction there.
One sentence. Well, that's Alan. You really like it dumbed down, right? I'm just gonna say that people are now coming to a realization that they are in a hall of mirrors with quicksand floors, that the imagery and the media and what's happening with our bodies is people are starting to pay more attention to it. The fact that some people are cooking buffalo burgers now and eating meat and realizing that the vegetarian thing is not really.
All right, Steve. Okay.
No. So people are waking up to their own biological. I hope that people wake up to their own biological reality and realize how they're being influenced when these effects happen, like the UAPs and stuff. I think the powers that be who want to generate lots of imagery with the AI and create this whole of mirrors with the AI, that's what the battle's against. The technology, and everybody, and people might not know, I was a 3D animator, an early 3D animator.
Steve.
I worked with Wired Magazine. Go ahead, Scott. Alan.
See, I have to go at 7:30, so I'm just want to
Okay,
cut.
do your thing. I'll stop.
No, I agree with some of it, very little of it. But what, Steve, Scott, did you want to say something?
I would just say, Steve, just hang on. We want to hear Alan now. That we'll talk more.
Yeah, it's all good. Good.
And Alan is just if everyone knows, he's the author of Making Contact, reality TV. Fascinating, Steve. But we want to talk more about this. And then Alan, I want to hear what you think about the UAPs and drones and all that.
Yeah. I think Steve is partly right. I think he gets a little too lower chakra, though, with the sperm and all that, because it is a stimulation. Seeing these things in the sky, it scares people, but it also excites them and also puts us on the edge for who knows what will happen with this, with the guy in the White House and all that stuff. There's an uncertainty, and it's just heightened. And I think Pluto going to Aquarius, marking the Aquarian age, exactly timed the appearance of those drones over New Jersey and actually the rest of the world, Langley in the UK. So Uranus is the planet that rules, some people say, the UFO phenomena. So it was really right on time. And getting back to Elizondo, when he wrote this book, Imminent, bestseller, New York Times. Steve didn't like it. I thought it was okay, but I don't. Anyway, it's called Imminent, if you can see it right there. He never actually says what was imminent, and it was published in August. So I think he had some inside scoop that this, I don't call it an invasion, I would call it appearance, was going to be coming up. He wrote it, published in August, put it on the shelf, and then November, boom, the world's invaded. But I don't think it's necessarily a takeover invasion. I think they are shaking us up because the ETs, this is my theory, told the Pentagon, if you don't tell them the truth, we're going to tell them and show up. And guess what? They keep lying. They didn't tell us the truth. So there they go. Around the world, drone, plasma, orb, whatever you want to call it, phenomena that is really sweeping the planet. I mean, I look at my UFO Twitter, there's stuff in Argentina, stuff in New Zealand, there's stuff over France, Italy, West Coast, South America. It's happening. And what I think social media is, it's actually the fifth estate. You know, they used to call the press the fourth estate, but the press has no longer serves the people. So what is serving the people is the networking among the public, and we're going to see more and more of that in the coming years. We've already seen a lot of it, but we can't depend on the old authorities for information. We can only not even depend on each other because there's a lot of hoaxing, a lot of stuff, but the social media is the new voice that's really public. It's no longer fringe. It's no longer just like little networking groups. It is taking the world as the information network. And sometimes it's...
But Alan, I'm going to interrupt you really quick. One sentence.
Sure.
90%, 80% of the media on social media is bots generated by AI. All right? It's not real information.
Okay, but getting back to your AI statement, not the social media I look at. I look at people I know. But I don't think AI is really going to take over. There is no ghost in the machine, Scott. If it's going to take over, it's people who program that to do that. There's no AI consciousness that wants to rule the world. Those are people programming the AI to rule the world, but it's the people behind that. And that they'll never have a consciousness. It's soulless, Steve. You should know that. It's soulless because other people say, no, there's an alien consciousness running AI like Steve Popiatek, but I haven't seen it. I only see people programming AI to do certain things. Yes, Hal took over the 2001 spacecraft because he thought the astronauts were going off course because he was programmed. It's all programming. Anyway, getting back to the drones, there's the government is denying it. It's a cross between ignorance and out and out lies. That's what we're seeing from the government now. This brings us back to the reliability of our networks, our community. It comes back to relying on each other for the truth because we're obviously not getting it from mainstream media. They've hardly even touched, maybe a little bit they touched the drone question. We're getting it from each other. We're getting it from people I know in New Jersey sending me videos all the time. But there is a really good journalist. I just want to show you this little clip here of Michael Schallenberg, who appeared in front of Congress recently. And he just comes out with this thing here. Let me see. You see that on your screen there? He comes out with... All right, here we go. Let me just... here we go.
Drone flyovers over U.S. military bases.
And importantly, there are no reported or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace.
That guy's a government guy. He's out and out lying.
I want to go back to something I said at the top. There has been no evidence of any of this activity in or near restricted spaces.
That's an absolute lie.
We have not seen drones penetrate restricted airspace.
They were over Langley Air Force. You know that, Scott.
Emphatically that there had been no drone flyovers over U.S. military base. Of course, we all know that there had been these drone flyovers.
Now, there have been some drone sightings, I think, as you know, over some military bases.
That's the same guy who said there was no drones over military. That's this guy. I think, I don't know what his job is, but he's some official government spokesman.
He's Secretary of Defense.
He also said on Friday to Martha McCallum, he said, Kirby said, that they
his
were...
name is Kirby. Awful lying. It's obviously he's lying. And so
investigating these cases.
We're taking that imagery seriously, and we're doing the best we can to analyze it, and we encourage people to come forward if they have additional sightings and imagery. We want to do the best we can to triangulate it.
Let me ask you this.
Corroborate every single sighting. Some of
this
them
girl's
have,
good.
not all of them, and we're working hard to do that.
And then yesterday he said that they had closely examined 5,000 cases.
We've done the analysis. We've done the detection and the analysis. We've corroborated the sightings.
Are we to be led to believe that they examined 5,000 cases? 5,000, it's actually 6,000 according to FBI, but 6,000 people were interviewed, asked where they were, what direction they were pointed in. It just strains credulity for them to say these things. It really undermines the trust, and that's why you see conspiracy theories emerging into the vacuum.
The last couple of days, though, he's been emphatic.
Right. So I personally don't think we're going to be able to trust the new boss, like the Who says, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Don't get fooled again. But that's where we're at. We're expecting a lot. I mean, I know, Steve, you supported Trump and you think he's going to make a change, but I don't see a change happening. The FBI, the people who covering it all up. So it comes back to the people. My prediction is going to be a people's movement for UFO disclosure. I hope to have a march on Washington. Maybe I'm not going to do it, but I'll march. But I think Danny Sheehan is in a good position to put that together. Steve Bassett. There is a people's movement emerging, and maybe that's what these drone appearances are about. Just like the women's liberation, black liberation, took Martin Luther King to march on Washington we need to demand the truth. And I think 2025, 2026 is going to be substantial. Hopefully, if we're not suppressed, bringing back the power to the people. And that's up to each one of us. I know that's optimistic and sort of a little naive, but why not? Why not? We have the media. We can own the media, social media, even if they're bots. Steve says no, we can. But we can. We can get the word out. It's like word of mouth with our internet. But I'm hopeful. I think the Aquarian thing also is the unexpected. I think we're going to see a lot of unexpected activity. Maybe some good, but and maybe not so good, but I think the positive will outweigh the negative. I think we're coming into a new time, a new history, a new humanity, and it's the unimaginable that is approaching us that most people can't even project into the future. So I say, expect the unexpected. This is Heraclitus, because it is difficult and hard to see, but it'd be right in front of us. So expect the unexpected, gang, because it's coming. Okay, Scott?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Alan. Very well said. Thank you for joining us.
Sure. I'll stick around for a little while, but
come
Steve,
back later, Alan, because we want to debate some stuff.
We certainly do. Right. It's not hormones. It's the fear. No, people love horror movies. That's what that's generating. And
well, we need to talk about Pan. We need to talk about Pan, and also
panic.
The beginning of wisdom is fear, right? Well,
Okay.
fear of the Lord, but fear, and that generates. So we could, if you're around, Alan, we'll talk about that later. Right?
All right, definitely. I'll come back on. Yeah, Steve Popey.
Yeah, we're gonna get Steve Popiatek next. So Steve, are you there?
Okay.
Hey, Steve.
Can you guys
Yes.
hear me? Okay.
Yeah, so it's an honor to have you. And so Steve is he's an astrologer. He works with grids.
I'm actually not really an astrologer, but yeah.
You
I
work
mean,
with grid energy.
I definitely study it though. Yeah.
And you do these monthly rituals. Well, I've been to one in Central Park. They're wonderful. Your channel for divine consciousness, divine energy. And you can really feel it if you've never been to one of his Central Park, right at the obelisk, right? It's
yeah.
great. Yeah, and it's really, it brings some great energy, and you have a lot of insight into what's happening now. So we're really excited to hear, really, particularly with the drones and the UAPs, and what's your predictions for 2025, and what the heck is going on?
Sure, sure. No, there's definitely a lot going on. I mean, and I also do those events on Zoom, especially during the cold weather as well. I should do a combination. And I mean, and even at the last Knife Expo, I saw a few of you guys out, on the panels and stuff. I was talking about how this negative alien invasion timeline, and as well as a fake one, has been really pushing up in the precipice a lot for what I've been seeing, and also dealing with clients, because clients I work with on a daily basis, especially the past couple of years. I've been saying this for a long time too, that about 3 years ago, what I saw was that a lot of our governments, or at least just say the parts of the governments that are working with the secret space programs, made updated treaties with more of the negative extraterrestrial groups to give them more permission to basically manipulate our history, manipulate our timeline, and commodify people's energy. And that since that point, every client every day has shown up with energy cords and energy implants in different parts of their energetic physiology, usually in the chakras or in the tree of life points, as well as in some other meridian points in the back, that when I track it shamanically, go back to different alien bases and or military bases hosting different negative ET groups. And they're coupling people, they're siphoning energy, just like Steve mentioned. I wouldn't say adrenaline the same way, but I would definitely say that life force energy, including sexual energy, which is one ray of it, is being harvested on a tremendous scale by these negative ET groups. I don't see it necessarily going towards running the ships, as it is more towards multiple agendas, because they have science to be able to create thought forms. It's like techno magic, where they can harness energy to create negative thought forms and use it to manipulate people's behavior as well. And it's running in tandem with a lot of other things happening in the shadow covert, like military world, where my other niche of clients in the military abduction field, the secret space program field, have a whole other level of horror going on with them that we work on helping to pop them off of these systems. But the point is that some people's energy are being harnessed, are being linked up to these advanced quantum computer systems. And what I literally see daily is that a portion of these people's energies are being connected to what I see as time gates, actual physical portal technology at certain facilities that are open to different timelines where different negative ET groups have already invaded the Earth. And they're trying to bring that timeline here, but they're trying to engineer it through mining our consensus and shifting our attention to feed their intention. So part of that is trying to create enough of a quantum coupling with certain people's energy bodies to that negative timeline through technology to try to manifest it here. Because in the past, positive extraterrestrials have intervened and stopped these negative timeline invasions. This happened a couple years ago, where the reptilians and the negative like Nordic ETs were about to step in. Like, it was really, really close to happening, and the Andromedans came in and like, you can do that, we're gonna make Star Wars happen in the sky. And so they like back down. But so now they're trying from other angles to see if they could add pressure temporally to create that timeline. So bringing it back kind of here and now, I don't think that's necessarily 100% what's happening now, but the drone scenario, I see it more like a combination of multiple actors on this theater of operations that's in the sky, that are with multiple agendas happening simultaneously. But definitely the ones that look more mechanical. When I was tracking the ones in Jersey, I was seeing L3 Harris, that defense contractor, 100% I was seeing was involved in those particular specific drones. Ones that are more orb-like and more multidimensional looking, to me, those are more alien ships, both positive and negative, that are also coming in and taking advantage of the fact that, hey, people are looking up more in this. And also what Alan mentioned, that there is that increase energy that is happening from the Pluto and Aquarius to get people to think outside the box and have that revolution of consciousness, evolution of consciousness, which can be exploited in both directions, just like you said too, Scott, in terms of creating more of the lower side of Aquarius to control the population, have more surveillance, have more lower collectivism that you see being exploited in the political scheme of things. So it's a lot of vectors converging. I was seeing other defense contractors doing it for the ones that are more overseas, that look more mechanical, like Northrop Grumman and Boeing and Lockheed Martin being involved in it as well, but more L3 Harris for local. And that for me, I was seeing that they're trying to push also as a retaliation towards Trump getting in, that there's a bit of a deep state pushback where they're trying to create different false flag potentials around or before the inauguration, even right after as well. I was seeing also February stuff potential that they want to, because I don't see the real alien invasion thing taking place now, even though they're tremendously harvesting energy towards it. I see that scenario more in 2028, 2029, because they keep showing me that for years that between 2028 and 2030 is the real action coming in, where the good guys want to really land, but at the same time, it's a much potential larger explosion of a next level Star Wars scenario. That's a whole longer story, which is going to happen, which could happen because of the bigger solar flash and part of the ascension process, which is happening not just metaphysically but physically to the planet. So for me, 2025 also, I mean, ties into that idea, and all these vectors do converge. I mean, even with the drones going on, there was videos, I saw it on the website when on like the radiation monitor where we took some shots of that before the article came out. Around the time the article came out in Zero Hedge, talking about the radiation spikes in New York City, and I'd seen one where the spikes were higher up in the numbers. And a week before that, my spirit guides told me to start taking potassium iodide. I was like, what's going on with that? A few weeks actually, they're like, well, there could be some potential radiation stuff in December. Well, low level, but still enough to want to take some more potassium iodide. So when we saw those things spike, and people were theorizing maybe some drones are being used to scan for radioactive particles. To me, it's like multiple agendas where they're trying to create a lot of this, like you said, a lot of the smoke and mirrors and throwing everything they can out right now in different directions, also to see how people react to it and to see how they can refine that, towards larger agendas. I would say that there's still a, medium, I would say around 60% chance of some false flag, fake alien invasion incident happening in the next few months, especially in February. I was seeing potentially for that. Hopefully that'll go down because timelines can shift depending upon where we are collectively. I mean, literally every 2 weeks when we're doing this grid work now, the past 2 years, it's turned into more like spiritual warrior work where we have to take down a new negative ET grid that they're putting up literally every friggin' week. We see it every 2 weeks, a new negative grid, not just the ETs, but a lot of it's kind of the defense contractors that are trying to use it to control consciousness, limit our ability to perceive higher realms, creating artificial
Steve,
veils.
when you say grids, what do you mean by that? One and two, do you see these as extraterrestrial or interdimensional?
Well, it's both because I kind of subscribe more to law of one book idea of how they express their cosmology, where they kind of talk about the chakra system as being also a lens to perceive soul's evolution and also to see that how planets evolve up through these different rays of like the densities of light that are also correspond to dimensions of evolution. So it's like different schools on different planets that support different states of consciousness that souls evolve into, both on the light and dark side. And then you have ones that go on the light that go higher because the idea of left-hand path, can only reach a certain point before you perceive unity from there, and then that's where it gets more interesting. But I see the ones that are more, as soon as we're going into more the ones that are still physical based aliens or more physical, but they're more fourth dimensional, which is where we're heading into. The heart chakra energy as a collective. The negative planets ascended on the dark side, the ones that we're dealing with, like the reptilians, and there's a lot of groups, the Apophis group, negative serpent ET groups. There's so many. I mean, there's over 20 different ones I've had to track, from different people, clients getting affected by these groups. So I've been increasing my own learning curve about who's who going on here these days, and there's more intervention coming in at the same time to help shut down these technologies. So the interdimensional part is that a lot of this technology is like fourth dimensional based, where they're using advanced quantum entanglement technologies to like link up people to technology remotely. And then when you're going into higher fifth dimensional and sixth dimensional races, then that gets into more Steve's talking about as well, where you're getting into light beings, you're getting into shapeshifters, you're getting into consciousness where the spaceships are not even, we can't call them physical because at that point they're more like thought created and it's built of higher dimensional material. So those beings are like interdimensional and multidimensional, but they still live on planets that we may not perceive even physical life on it from our 3D technology point of view, because their whole structure of society is built on these multidimensional structures that are not normally perceivable by our limited vision, but more by the third eye. And so DMT opening up our third eye, we're able to see other spectrums where a lot of these beings do inhabit. And then you also do have stuff like with the Wilhelm Reich example. I love that too, about those jellyfish beings in the rods that are more of our biophotonic, bioplasmic creatures that exist in the infrared realm around the auric field of the earth, and they're like stewards, part of Gaia's ecosystem. So I think to me, it's all coexisting. It's not about them being mutually exclusive, like it has to be this or that. To me, it's all of it. And that these, darker groups that are, that are working more with the dark magic cults, they're some of the higher adepts, they're working with these negative extraterrestrial beings, because the way I see it is that it's like you have humans on the dark side working with demonic lower entities, and then they can work with negative extraterrestrials. And the same thing on the other side, positive light workers can work with angels, who then work with positive galactic beings who are from a whole scale, from physical to non-physical, to light being essence. So, and that's all converging here, you know, and they all have their own kind of agenda for that. Backtrack. Years ago, I was even talking about maybe at the expo, when Sean David, bless his soul, who was passed away, we had conversations about it, about that 2012. I'd originally seen that end of the Mayan calendar. They had shown me that it was an opening in time, a singularity in time, where literally a wave of love was going back in time to help heal certain distortions in our history, kind of like when we send love to our own bodies to heal cellular memory so we can move past trauma. That there was this wave of love going back through time, and that return wave was going to take place after a 13-year period, which is what we're entering now in 2025. And that was almost like compressing a spring so that we can have the launching forward of like the Kundalini of like Gaia's love coming out, and that return wave of light, which is going to start coming in the spring of 2025, was also meeting some resistance pockets by negative groups because they're trying to mess with our ability to calibrate to Gaia's new elemental ascension and new plasma core. For me, I see definitely that there's more of a, some scientists talk about that too, that there's more of a dense plasma core in the Earth, her true inner sun. And that plasma core is getting accelerated to ready to rev up like a plasma turbine engine, you know, to begin to shoot up more of these longitudinal scalar waves that are going to be like vortexes coming out of what I saw was 7 locations initially coming up in the spring. And that I'm going to be getting the Philippines. I'm going back there. I was there in September to track certain vortexes that are going to be part of this. So if anybody's going to be in the Philippines beginning of May, you can come join me for some fun activations and hang on the beach right afterwards. But there's 7 locations, and they were just showing me this past week that at least 5 other locations, one of which is in the US and Nebraska, which is funny, heartland of America. These new Phoenix energies were going to be rising out from the depths of the core, and these were like the real first ascension waves. But that a lot of negative groups are trying to manipulate that, build facilities near there, project technologies to try to block that flow. So I'm discovering more details about this recently. We need to do group work to call in the good teams. Like, no, we don't consent to any of these idiots, you know, whether they're human or not, to stop messing with our friggin' evolution and stop trying to put their harmonic pollution, you know, that's trying to create this negative dilution, you know, and obscure the solution, right? That doesn't go to rhyme there. So, you know, there's a lot that I see simultaneously happening with that. But to me, this Phoenix energy and this resurrection of like love potential is going to reach a whole new potential manifestation level if we can clear through these blockages of techno interference. And that's going to be first 2 weeks in May, and then in October, there's other locations going to be activated, including one in St. Martin in the Caribbean. I'm going to take a group out there to do some grid work in the oceans. And back to your original question, Scott, I'm sorry, but some of the basic negative grids that we have to take down are like negative geometric grids. Some of them will be like a tetrahedron that a group will put around the Earth that they beam out from emitters, say 3 locations, or a negative octahedron that they beam out from 4 locations. Or they work a lot with platonic solids to try to manipulate and terraform the elements that the platonic solids represent. Like they're trying to link up like morphic resonance from their negative planets through these grids that they're artificially creating to try to force humanity to see through their distorted lens and to be imbued with their toxicity. So literally it's a whole different level of like mood management, emotional management, trying to like pollute our water element, air element, ether, all that. But we know we're working on it. Every 2 weeks we're doing group work to like call it like the Andromedans are coming in massively to help out, being some Saturn, certain plating groups, different groups will showcase when we do the channeling. They want to help us to be like the ground crew, to open up the door so they can come and be like, look, this is a violation. Get the hell out of here. We don't consent to this crap of this happening in our backyard. So it's way beyond for me just a normal like messing with the 5G and controlling people's emotional states that's happening. It's like much bigger, huge phenomenon, and I think all of this is kind of building up in pressure. So like more volcanoes, more earthquakes are going to be increasing, especially for later next year when those energies of Gaia's core are going to come out. It's going to be quite more shakeups. And I also was concerned about a bigger one happening near Manila, so I'm not going to be by Manila. We're going to be in other areas of the Philippines at that time. Those are all. But that's not the man-made one. These are more like Gaia doing a chiropractic adjustment to kind of like raise her Kundalini and have this fountain come out to us. So there's a lot of potential for that energy to help us in tremendous ways, depending upon how calibrated we are to it. But I think a lot of the toxicity coming in from, even some of the drones were being shown spraying their version of chemtrails over part of Jersey. And to me, I saw that as new nanotech being sprayed out by L3 Harris to try to like do their next little experiment of mind control manipulation, just like they did with the nanotech and a few years ago with the mass project. And I see
question in the chat is pretty interesting. So Lolan says, I think AI is messing with me. Do you think that they might be using AI like an alien invasion?
Well, there's also that there, see for me there's several groups that are plotting their little intervention scenarios. Alien AI for me 100% exists. I've seen it time and time again. I've been attacked by it. I've had clients have had to clear from it. There's a facility they have in Kansas. Funny enough, there's a lot of groups building up their facilities in the Midwest, which is in part trying to contaminate the periphery of this new incoming energy that's going to be coming out of ley lines there. And they're trying to like subliminally add their negative semiotics to it to try to pollute humanity. Like they're trying to invert. Dark always wants to invert everything. And AI is inverting organic, natural energy to make people more attached to digital creation. So the more we're giving away our third eye to AI, then obviously it creates more of a shadow space for whether it's human generated, Neuralink type stuff that can co-opt you. It opens up a back door energetically for alien AI to come in. And the alien AI is like they're trying to create like a version, not just them, but I've seen this happen with certain intelligence agencies technology where they've been trying to create this artificial overlay to the astral plane, to parts of the astral plane to create their ultimate kind of like holodeck or virtual reality uh, um, system that's being used by partially harvesting energy from people that creates almost like a pixelation. They call it dream seeds, as a friend of mine had seen when we were tracking it. And I got pulled into that realm a few times out of body and dream plane, and they were trying to trap me in that. And it felt so real. Like normal things to wake up were not happening. So I was like, wow, this really is like a simulated reality layer that they're trying to create. And there are different agendas that are groups that are doing that. And where they're trying to develop anything they can to try to trap people's consciousness so that we're not properly in alignment with the new shifts. So these people get very deviant and a whole different scale. So the alien AI, for me, I seen alien AI originally coming from outside of our galaxy, and the Andromedans, when they first were channeling to me in the dream plane several years ago before they started coming in regularly, they said that they were sending in huge contingencies along with the Arcturians to create a trench in the sand, so to speak, to block out the intergalactic alien AI threat, because it really was creating a lot of problems in other worlds, and that there were different, aspects happening here. So alien AI, I would see that also. They would put cords, implants in people. They would also put this what they call the remote quantum access port, and kind of like the Matrix movie, in the back of people's clients' necks I saw, where it literally looked like they were trying to engineer the astral energy in a person's back of their neck to like form this port that they could plug these little tubular devices into it that would entangle them to technology at the actual facility. And then in women, I was seeing them putting, certain women had it, they had these belts on where they were trying to put these other little pod like structures into the sexual area so that the women's sexual energy would almost like add a layer of authenticity to the AI construct. Because they're working with thought forms. The alien AI is not working with, they're working with 4D thought form technologies. And to not be rejected by the earth, they need to have our chi energy overlaying it, so that it's like almost like having taking a drug that, so your body doesn't reject an implant, so they're trying to add a energetic level of that so they can bypass our normal immune system response and also Mother Earth's response to it, and creating these like AI looking 4D astral circuit boards over different areas that we've also had to work on calling an intervention and take down. We're saying, no, Guy is not going to be fucking chipped by you guys. It's like, stop, but
So
it's
how does
not just like
one protect themselves against this
Oh,
AI?
I mean, again, this is something I see, waxing up and down. I mean, half of it's training our immune system energetically as well, bioetherically, to recognize and create more healthy boundaries. So for me, like that's what I'm also a ceremonial magician too, a white wizard, really, inside of like cosmic shamanism work. So for me, doing regular work and calling in the archangels in each direction and calling in my galactic teams, regularly is essential. And being in nature, grounding, so that when you recognize there's something coming in that feels different from you and it's starting to feel invasive or creating pain in the body, you need to start doing something, to clear it out. I mean, so there are people I've had physical pains, and it was coming from not just alien AI but other technologies that was creating the pain in the body. And it dovetails the intersection between like dark magic and technology, and also sometimes, I talk about it too at I've had a last expo video put on a Rumble, but like, there's a bigger story for me about also star people, galactic people of reincarnation that have had a certain number of lifetimes that are infiltration lifetimes, we call them, where so many of us were involved in these galactic wars in other past lives. And to me, that also plays a issue with certain clients I see now, and that say if you're a Palladian, for example, on the good side, and Palladians like, oh, we need some volunteers. Who wants to go be reptilian next life? Who wants to go be the other dark group, gray? Because there's a subsection of light workers that are galactic who will take on those infiltration assignments to try to bring light to that dark collective to remind them, hey, you don't have to be an asshole for all of eternity. You can actually come back to the light. And we also need to get more understanding of the methodology, technology, templates. We want to have our own light workers to be like light spies to hack the dark network. So this is happening, has happened across a huge scale, especially because the light, needs people like that in place. But the problem is that so many of us that are reincarnated now, and all these other idiots are here, and so they're looking for any light worker that has any history with them, any unresolved contract or energetic malware in their field can be used to exploit it. And they're the first ones in negative ETs are trying to target to try to like use them as a vehicle or try to convert them, distort them, invert their energy, use them as a proxy. So part of what I do with clients is have that category. We go into a special process to heal and clean out those unresolved shadow energies so that they're not used against the client anymore, and then to repurpose that part to their original lineage of their positive lineage so that they can come in more, because we're like the ground crew here. So we have to start being more conscientious calling in. So if you're doing positive magic, call in the positive teams as well that are there's different phrases and groups. That's too long to go into now. This is part of why I do the group work as well, so we can kind of harness together and be like, all right, we're here as like agents of action of change in a good way. Esoterically, we need to have ground troops in a good way, right? People doing the actual grassroots work, like Steve and other people doing, and Alan, and putting messages out there, and and more disclosure. I feel is definitely going to happen. I that's a big part of this energy is like bringing light up to awareness. And I think we have that choice option. Okay, do we want to go down that negative techno route? And there was another, but it all intersects. There was another one I worked on recently, client, and it was one time, and she was going to physical therapy for 5 years for pain in her neck and wrist, and it wasn't going away. One session, and she suspected there was dark magic from neighbors going on because they had a whole drama that was long to go into. So when I saw it, she had energetic chains on her wrist, and then she also had a negative past life and negative ET interference that was clogging up parts of her field. We literally cleared out the stuff from her neck and wrist, and all the pain went away. And she was like, "Oh my God, I'll have to do any more therapy right now." She canceled her physical therapy, but that was coming from such a crazy place you would never think. Yeah, it's actually dark magic creating a poor woman's pain with 70-something years old, for 5 years, and it's not even coming from a physical illness. It's esoteric and it's multidimensional influences. So these things are manifesting more and more physical. I feel like with people and clients that I see, and so we need to really kind of address that and be like, okay, we want to bring in the good timelines, but we can't ignore the shit that's here because then we can't get to the good timeline. So it's bringing light, awareness, and love, and healing, and forgiveness. And I do have a lot more faith in things are going to happen. I'm not a big fan of Musk, but I do feel like other people around Trump are going to bring in some other things that are counter to the alien invasion timeline, which is why they're even more pissed off and trying to pull their little axe here. So that's my little synopsis of part of that.
Wonderful. As far as that goes, you mentioned maybe interference. Do you think that there's going to be interference in the inauguration, perhaps?
I'm pulling out the popcorn myself right now, right? I think there are so many things that are fluctuating, even trying to view certain things with the haze energetically in certain timelines that I'm like, wow, there's really a lot of things happening simultaneously. So, if it does to me, it's like, okay, there's drama. Drama is inevitable here with this right now for the next couple of years. It's a matter of degrees of 50 shades of gray drama versus our light field, right? So the more we can be lighthouse beacons and be like, okay, we're not going to overly attach to whatever happens there, and just know that there's a bigger thing happening that we can be part of. And knowing that, yeah, Gaia really wants to shake all these idiots off her body, starting with the inner levels, and help us to really clear out the obstructions to love energy. We need to get back to that compass of divine love and really understanding how are we out of tune with the divine love that we're supposed to be anchoring as light workers here, and where are we being thrown into the chaos of the aberrations of distortion and fear, because these negative, same thing, these organized vampire groups, I've had battles with a bunch of them over the years, known people involved in these groups. They're all psychic vampires. They do techniques to suck people's energy. They go to night clubs, literally target people on E, but because their auras are more open and they suck their energy. So this is a phenomenon that's going on for millennia, but they're very organized groups of dark workers that are out there, and a certain number of them are working with the negative ETs, and then a certain number of them have positions in military intelligence defense contractors. And when you start to look at that, you understand there's an esoteric bridge where you have black magicians that are working as friggin' high level on these secret space programs and defense contractors. Then you start to understand more of their methodology and more of their mentality of what they value. So for them, consciousness is commodity, and harnessing people's energy is a commodity. So it's not just about the capitalism stuff we see on a normal level. But yeah, I think there's going to be a bit of a drama. I guess I'm even after that, late February, this next few months for me can be volatile. And I think there's a lot of in-house fighting going on. And I'm curious with that part. But, again, I'm there trying to help me focus more on, I'm going to be leaving out of here in February and going to Philippines and subletting my place for about 4 to 5 months and doing some stuff out there and, recharging at the Positive Phoenix Vortex because, and still doing my Zoom work with clients while out there. But,
That's wonderful. Does anyone have any questions for Steve before we're gonna move on to Asa Hershoff? Anyone have any comments or questions? That was a really
I
great.
kind of compress a lot. I talk too fast sometimes, but I try to squeeze it
No,
in.
it's fascinating. There's a lot of great information there, and I highly recommend his. Well, unfortunately, will you be still doing these full moon rituals from Philippines?
Yeah, it might just be a different time period because of that
Yeah.
time difference. I have to figure that out still. But definitely before then, if absolutely we're still doing it. And yeah, we have one coming up this coming Monday, right, for the 30th. And then there's one in the middle, and was it January 15th for that one? There's also stuff going on, yeah, where there's a few agendas for the negative, like Nordic ETs. They're trying to bring some more like negative ice energy from this, like they really work with like the Nordic mythology from like their ice giant world, let's call it that. But we need to work on clearing that out. There's some new players in town that are trying to throw their stuff around to it, people. But we just worked against like Amun group. There was like it's just the set group, Amun, Apophis, a lot of these beings that have mythological names are really higher dimensional negative ET leaders, and and even the alien AI thing that I saw, that the being is like a negative higher dimensional being that kind of had like a Baphomet, like satanic looking vibe with the horns, and this being was actually controlling a lot of the alien AI as a higher consciousness, and he was more from not even from our galaxy. And but that was a little side note thing that I've seen pop up a few times. But
Well, thank you very much,
anyway.
Steve. Yeah, blessings and happy
Thank
New
you, yeah.
Year. Okay,
Definitely. Awesome.
and Steve, do you have anything to say, Steve Speer?
Well, I would like to bring up just Philip Dick, because when we're talking about this kind of Zebra and Valis, and I think it was called it Sophia at one point, some people call it the satellite that's out there that's beaming down information supposedly in the Philip Dick cosmology, and some of these narrative threads get lost. We have to always try to go back and pick them up. Philip Dick being very important in the Gnostic kind of neo-Gnostic tradition, and I think these people have to be mentioned sometimes just to
Yeah.
keep these narrative threads in the weaving going on. I also just want to mention that, part of this is a prediction. Alan cut me off. Is the expanded sensorium? I think people are going to have possibly an expanded sensorium in the next kind of phase. And that means seeing more things in the sky because of an expanded sensorium, and that's the mob zone, but I won't get into that. Maybe we talk about it later. Thanks, Scott. Thanks.
That's it's interesting. Yeah, Kenneth Grant's always an interesting character, definitely. So now, very honored to have Asa Hershoff, Lama Jinpa here. Asa is many years as a chiropractor, naturopath, and now he's a natural health consultant and a homeopath. And he also runs he's also a Tibetan adept. He's did a 2-year retreat.
3 years.
You can talk a little bit more about that. And 3 year, I'm sorry, 3 years. He runs the Tibetan Chod school, where he teaches that Cha, which is a very profound practice. I'd love to, if you could talk just a bit about that as well. And you are also teaching 5 elements. So you're teaching a lot of really important healing modalities right now.
Yeah.
And he really is interested in hearing your opinions in 2025. Where are we headed?
Well, probably what I have to say is a lot more tame than what I'm afraid than what we've been listening to, which was really fascinating, amazing stuff. And of course, dealing with patients, you do run across all of these issues. I'm open to whatever patients bring, whether it's demons, ETs, or whatever. But I wanted to talk about, maybe the title of my little talk, if I gave it a title, is what can we do? What would I suggest that we can do to save humanity, which seems to be careening off the rails? And I want to preface that by just kind of looking at the context that we're all in, which is something called karma, being a long-time Buddhist. But karma is not exactly as it's generally discussed, talked about, written about, and so on. Because first of all, karma is not just what you did, but also what was done to you. It's the whole context you came from. But I like to think of karma contextually as this gigantic wave, let's call it a galactic wave or a universal wave of every moment that's happened before this one in every atom, molecule, insect, bird, human, mountain, sky, star, swirling galaxies. All of that is inexorably pushing forward. So all of us are being swept by that massive contextual karma wherever we live, wherever our karma finds us right now. That wave of the last moment and the moment before that, going back through endless time, is pushing us forwards once creation happened, or if it happened, or simultaneously happening with uncreation. So that being the case, what can we, our little cork in the storm, what can we possibly do to effect some kind of change in our limited sphere or in the greater sphere? How can we help others? Of course, people are doing it in many, many different ways, healing others and so on and so forth. But again, bringing in the context of the human race, of humanity within this karmic bubble, is a brilliant master by the name of J.G. Bennett, who was a student of Gurdjieff, that I'm sure everyone's familiar with, British, who founded his own school. And he coined this excellent phraseology of dividing people generally into psychostatic and psychoactive individuals. In other words, the great sleeping masses, as Gurdjieff called it, the fourth state, the third state, the sleeping state, people who are basically have no specific self-awareness, or their consciousness is kind of going to stay where it is. They're just living life in a very mundane way, taking things on at face value, at face meaning, and not really looking for, not wanting to see, or not capable of seeing anything deeper. And those who are psychoactive, maybe a much smaller group, who is working in a variety of different ways to transform themselves, depending on the traditions, depending on the influences that they've come under, and trying to look at other possibilities. So then there's two other groups that I add on to Bennett's classification, which is those semi-demonic human beings, you could say psychopaths, narcissists of whatever variety, whether they're mild or extremely pathological, who are just hell-bent because of their own weakness and their own self-hatred, are hell-bent on controlling and manipulating others. And that's a very big story that certain people on this call are very, very familiar with. And then there are those who are of an elevated stature, far beyond my ken, my understanding. But I've had the fortune of having gone to Asia at least 60 times. I'm an old man. I've spent most of my life over there. I have met those exalted adepts who are working tirelessly to try to counter those influences and wake up a human being. So, and then within that psychostatic people, we have to understand that that state of unawareness, state of unconsciousness, is often a choice. If you're given that fork in the road, it is the pillar of salt syndrome, Lot's wife, of maybe you come across some spiritual deeper meaning or some kind of opening, and then you say, no, I don't think I'm going to go in that direction. So many human beings choose to live within a self-deceptive, or I call self-delusional bubble. And there's lots of those ready-made, on the shelf ideologies and so on, or it could be political agendas, whatever you wish, or New Age charlatanism. It's in the spiritual realm, it's in the political realm, it's in any other walk of life where you can get one of those little bubbles and live within that and not have to stick your head out and take responsibility for the being truly alive and psychologically facing your inherent struggles, and spiritually facing the fact that yes, we're not necessarily here just to have a lot of fun, but or even to raise a family, and isn't that wonderful, and make money, but there may be some other far deeper agenda, far other greater potential that we have a responsibility to strive towards. So that's kind of the situation that we're in. And my little piece of advice for the, if you want to call it advice, suggestion, I won't say advice, it sounds too dictatorial, but my suggestion is there, first of all, we see that all of the external, it's not like we're the first human beings to notice this kind of problem on the planet. As far back as we can see, whether it's Mesopotamia, Egypt, China, ancient China, India, we've had this problem of humanity's faults and failings and inability to really transform itself en masse, in spite of these great masters, in spite of these great architectural monuments which have been left behind, these great cultures. All of these historical attempts have generally failed because, and I think this is not a new discovery, but obviously an external answers will never be a permanent solution. So, you can't, I always say, you can't change humanity through institutions, through governments, through new ideas, new concepts, new isms, communism or democracyism, or whatever it might be. They may have certainly some civilizing effect on our our insane goings on, creating a better world socially or culturally, so that we have the peace and we have the time, we have the possibility of making some moves, of not being under assault all the time. So that's a good thing. But real change has to come from within. It has to be individuals, enough individuals that undergo internal changes, because just creating a new institution and a new organization or new cult or whatever it might be, or new religion, will be only a temporary stopgap. So for me, the one thing, and I'll just boil it down to one thing, because I think it's the most important thing, and I'm writing about it a lot. I still haven't published my books on it yet, but the one thing we need is to understand a hidden, let's say, hidden in plain sight aspect of human nature. And it's the missing piece, really. It's the missing link in the whole of modern day psychology, as well as the great proportion, the great majority of ancient philosophy, and certainly also within religion, within New Age, you name it. They're all missing the most important aspect, well, not all of them, but a good 90-something%. And that is simply the duality that exists within a human being. And that's not the duality of ego versus spirit. There's something much more mundane. I call it the rather than the dualistic approach to human beings, there's an unenlightened self, and then there's our superior, magnificent, exalted, enlightened nature. But I see a tripartite, a triple self model. And that is a division that I learned through my studies with Gurdjieff. And that completely changed my life. That knowledge that I gained has been with me ever since. And it's been a bedrock of everything that I have done, in spite of, 40 years in Buddhism, etc. Still, that is a foundational requirement in our understanding. And that's the first thing I look for when I pick up any book or look at any new teaching or any course or any teacher. Do they understand that basic something? If they don't, I know that everything's going to go off the rails. They're missing that omission. It's like the 25-cent piece that scuttles the $3 billion rocket. And that piece is the division of essence and persona. Such a simple thing. And yet almost every psychologist, I would say every mainstream psychologist has missed that, including Jung and other darlings of psychology or alternative psychology. He did touch on it, but then he passed that by. And essence is basically how we were born, who we are, what our nature is. You could say our karma, our biology, our inherent predispositions and tendencies. So I'm pretty simple, straightforward, wherever that all comes from, as I say, whether you consider it's a karmic, biological, but here we are, our bloodline, etc. And then persona, which is everything that's been dumped into us, the flotsam and jetsam of thousands of years of culture, including language, including our values and our way of perceiving, our way of speaking, and so on and so forth. That the point is that essence is our core. That is something real. That's something that can evolve. You could say that we can grow a soul from that. That is what can, that has a spiritual connection because it's real. That's something that can evolve, transform. Whereas the persona is a complete artifice. I don't care how sophisticated it is. I don't care how great our language is. That is completely an artificial, non-real. It's a fake. It's a fabrication. A necessary fabrication. Otherwise, you couldn't understand the words I was saying, or you wouldn't understand why I'm dressed the way I am, or my house plants, whatever. Everything is part of that shared lingua franca, the shared reality, our shared illusions. But the problem is that essence, which is supposed to be our core, and the persona is just our tool, just the persona meaning mask, just the external tool that we use to receive information and broadcast, etc., and communicate in so many different ways. That becomes the positive pole. That starts to take over. In alchemy, you see these pictures always of the kingdom has been the real king has, and the kingdom or the kingship has been usurped by this false ruler. He takes over the throne. And that's our problem. We have a false ruler or persona that in the great majority, the vast majority of people, persona has taken over. Persona, which is just a fabrication, has no reality of itself whatsoever, has taken over. And our essence, which is supposed to grow and mature, often stops growing at a very young age. They call it arrested development, which is, I would say, the greatest pathology of humankind is arrested development. Many people, most people, are at a either prepubescent or even childhood stage in terms of their essence. And essence needs to grow up, mature, take on all of the things that we read about in positive psychology, for example, all of those positive traits. That is part of our essence. Persona cannot really have, it has traits, but those traits are just manufactured, they're programmed, they're robotic. And so when you live within your persona, when that becomes your false idol, your fatted calf, or your golden calf rather, then you're actually living according to you're living within a false self, and you're doing everything to feed the needs of that false self. It's eating, it's sleeping, it's getting gratification, but the real you is just lost. And in all my healing work, the greatest contribution I feel that I make, whether I'm using homeopathy or whatever I'm doing, energy work, which is something I've been with me for almost 50 years from the wonderful training that I received. The greatest gift I can give those people is in different ways demonstrating to them who they really are, shifting the focus from their persona into their essence. They start to live an essence life. So again, there aren't a lot of books you can fall back on right now, except reading Gurdjieff's original works about essence, and they call it essence and personality. I say persona because personality now means something completely different. But if you look at the whole of modern psychology, they treat our identity or our person as it is one solid structure. It's a terrible mistake. And again, spirituality generally treats our being as one soul. We have to either transcend or get rid of our normative self. This is not true. We have to disidentify with our persona, find out what our essence is, and then yes, eventually we may transcend that, but you can only do that through essence. Essence can merge with finer and finer energies and finer levels of being, but persona can't do anything. All it can do is upgrade. And that's what happens. People get, I just found a new religion. I read a new book. I just upgraded. Now I sound very intelligent. I've co-opted the emotions. I've co-opted the intellect. And I sound and look like a real person. But instead, I'm just a fabrication. So essence and persona is if more and more people on this planet understand that division and stop living within persona, then all of those wacky ideologies, all of the right and left, and all of that will start dissolving because people will live within a sphere, a potential sphere of, the architecture of that essence from my point of view. And that's not Gurdjieff, is that's the second pillar of my elemental psychology approach. The architecture of that is the 5 elements. So we have a warrior, a ruler, a creator, a guru, and a lover, which correspond to the 5 elements. So that is the structure, and that is the beauty of the gem that is a human being. So that's my story.
That's fascinating. Steve, do you have something to say? Because I know Gurdjieff is a big interest of yours. And
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with the J.G. Bennett stuff, and I just read a Bennett quote really quick. Structure is the primary element of experience and not something that is added by the mind. In this respect, it can be said that the techniques of understanding call for a drastic revision of the usual modes of thought that treat being and understanding as independent or at least separable from one another. That's a Bennett quote. And I always go back, I've said it a million times, Uspensky said, we need to learn to think in different categories. I believe Uspensky said that after doing Laughing Gas in the early 1900s. But J.G. Bennett's an important character. He worked for the British Petroleum. He worked for the British Army. He was one of the first people to go and like run around with the British intelligence in Saudi Arabia, going to a lot of Sufi shrines. He got involved with Idris Shah towards the end. If everybody knows Idris Shah, Idris Shah went on to be a very interesting factoid. Is Idris Shah went on to be Gerald Gardner's personal secretary. So the fact that Idris Shah is running around and doing a lot of spook work too, we always have to ask if Bennett and Gurdjieff. I've been doing Gurdjieff and Bennett stuff. I just thought about it for almost 50 years. Masters of Wisdom is an amazing book tracing the demiurgic currents from Genghis Khan prehistory. It comes through Genghis Khan and ends up in Christ as a great chapter in the book called the Masters of Wisdom, J.G. Bennett's last book. It's a great, great book. I recommend it highly. I also recommend Dramatic Universe. I'm sure you've read it, I hope. And there's a lot of Bennett tapes are out there too. When he was in Sherborne House in England, he released a lot of video cassette tapes. I have a whole collection of them. If anybody wants them, I'll try to get them to them. I have them as audio files. But yeah, Bennett's a very important character. And again, these narrative threads, like I brought up Philip Dick before, we always have to kind of maintain these narrative threads, these currents through our history. We can't predict the future if we don't know the past in some regards, right? We can get very lucky maybe, but it does help to know the past. And Bennett is a very important character along with Gurdjieff. So thanks, Scott.
And he still has students that are actively teaching. Actually, I study with one now online who's quite
yeah. There's lots of schisms. There's lots of
schisms.
There's lots of schisms in the Gurdjieff work. We know there's lots of schisms, and I also will say very bluntly that I think Zen has overtaken the Gurdjieff work, and it's become very much Zen modulated as opposed to Gurdjieff's original work. And we'll go back to another J.G. Bennett quote, Zen being this kind of like, oh, it's all cool and I'm never. J.G. Bennett famously said, you cannot achieve the aim without suffering, right? And suffering never comes into the equation in the modern world, right? In the modern world, we care about pleasure and hedonism. And again, the hodos chameleontis, where we just live in a world where we're buffeted by pleasurable images. And I brought it up before, Philebus, Plato's Philebus, pleasure or wisdom, which do you choose? And there's probably more in between that.
Thank you very much, Steve. Asa, I have a quick question. You mentioned you're studying with an actual student of Bennett's. Do you mind sharing who that is?
His name is he's got a lot of really great books too, which is what prompted me to be in touch with him. And he's got free online classes, of course you can contribute, but his name is Naft, N-A-F-T, and you can find his website. I think his website's called Frontier Science. I could look it up. But yeah, he's really a lovely man, a wonderful man, and he's a repository because he spent a few years with Bennett at Sherborne. So he's a repository, and he actually he's very open about all his teaching. He has, I think, 25 different meditations that were taught by Bennett and Gurdjieff on his website. As you know, the Gurdjieffian methodologies have been kept quite secret, except somewhat the movements. And there's a fellow by the name of Aziz, A-Z-I-Z. He's the first guy to actually publish some books describing Gurdjieff's actual meditative techniques that he used, which is very, very interesting for me. And you can kind of see through those where he took influences, even from he says, from Tibetan sources and so on and so forth. Obviously, Gurdjieff was a great master, but he was very experimental, and his students were kind of his guinea pigs. And we don't, as they say, as Ouspensky says in his book, fragments of an unknown teaching. There's still a lot of riddles around
Well, and I will suppose too, I will very much put this out there and say that Gurdjieff was involved in hormonal work, as I spoke at the beginning, stimulations to create certain states of mind that come about from external influences that create certain structures in the body that allow these different chemical combinations to come about and that affect the brain and affect thought, and then maybe affect other things after that, dopamine and adrenaline. Gurdjieff was famously that's one of the problems about Gurdjieff, is that now it's all about, the movements, et cetera, but Gurdjieff was a relatively brutal person, having people do a hardcore physical labor, insulting them very much. We know about the idiots in Paris kind of thing, where he would sit there and get everybody drunk, very drunk, again, affecting their bodily chemistry, get them very drunk and begin insulting them, causing them to go into altered states. This is, again, maybe we can use the word psychedelic, and creating these altered states, shattering the illusion of the mask that we present to the world. Yeah. Gurdjieff, again, it was about thwarting the machine that we are, and stopping, and it goes into Scientology, taking away the mechanistic imprints that force us to act in certain ways. Gurdjieff was like, we are a machine, you know what I mean? And we have to get beyond that. And that's part of my theory about part of the machine is this: if you view it kind of psychically, you see these chemical substances in our being as part of a machine. It's part of the machine. It's the robotic, it's an aspect of the robotic of our being. So thank you.
So it's innerfrontier.org. That's where you'll find the work of Naft, Joseph Naft. And he's really a lovely man. He's not like Gurdjieff, who was, brutal and tough guy.
We don't need lovely these days. We don't
a lot of Buddhist teachers that I've known were just ruthless,
Do you mind also talking about your Chod work, and how it relates to, it's fascinating, how it relates to maybe some of these UAP, these orbs and all that. I mean, is there a connection between what's happening? Because you work with the demonic in Chod, right? Maybe you could explain how that works, and how in a larger context how society is going, that type of thing.
That's a great question. I wasn't prepared for, but
can you talk about? Maybe you can talk about. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt, but maybe because you would probably know Beelzebub's tales as a UAP, right? Because Beelzebub's is an early UFO. It's before 1947, and it's also has that demonic aspect about Beelzebub. Could you speak about that? Because I would love to hear something about that.
I don't think I know anything about that, but I do know one thing. I do know about all that, and it's not my area. Actually, not my area of interest even. But I do know through my own personal experience that at some point they did dump a lot of the flotsam and jetsam I say there's the original humans, and then they dumped a lot of beings here as workers and different so unfortunately that was a problem. That's been a problem all the way along, as they dumped a lot of other non-human beings to intermarry and integrate with us and so on. But as far as Chu itself, I mean, this is a very profound, you could say advanced, even though a lot of people take it up without proper training. But hey, this is the 2000s, right? But Chu is a practice of basically offering your own body as a visualization, but making it a visualization, but you could say you're enacting it energetically, where you are offering your body and transforming it, returning it to its base substance, which is the 5 elements, and then making offerings to the entirety of the universe, higher beings, the enlightened beings, to all the protectors or the higher spiritual forces, feminine dakinis and so on, what we call protectors in Buddhism, and then to all sentient beings, humans, animals, etc., and then also to all demonic creatures, so that we call them the 4 classes of guests. So you become an enlightened form, and then your own corpse is there, which you chop up and you serve in very gruesome ways, and then offer it to these different guests, and you can focus more on the demonic, whatever. So this is a way of very quickly accumulating positive karma and clearing out negative karma. As far as those demons, there can be demons of your own personal karma. They call them body demons or demons of place, and or you can go out there and challenge and you're supposed to, and show you're supposed to travel around and try to be in odd places, or you could say power spots, whether they're negative or positive power spots, threatening spots, and deal with those forces with 2 aims in mind. One is, of course, to calm those energies and to deal with them, or to help beings that live in that area, but then also to challenge yourself and see if you can handle it, and see if you can let go of your clinging towards your identity, your body, etc. Because in all cases, you're dying every time. You're doing what's called POA, you're leaving your body, and there it is. And you're at all times removing yourself from the equation, removing your biology and your biography, all of your clinging to your current life and your current identity. And so, yeah, it's a very, very profound practice, and a very tough one, really. If it isn't tough, as you were saying earlier on, Steve, if it isn't tough, you are not doing it right. It's it's kind of a very brutal practice, though it makes you feel quite joyous. They say you're already playing this drum and chanting these exquisite melodies. It does make you have a blissful experience in your demise somehow. But it is at the same time, it's brutal for all of your clinging and all of your neurosis. You're screwed, But my teacher, Kala Rinpoche, was like that. He was the sweetest, gentlest little old man. He exuded so much love. If you came in the room with him, you'd just start crying until you got into the inner circle, and then the gloves came off. And he was absolutely ruthless. Basically, you're here for your ego to die, so forget about, your bullshit is done. So that, I'm still resisting, obviously.
But now you teach this. I know you have a school, Tibetan healing school.
Yeah, I don't teach it so much now. I teach it, to a very small group for the reason that it's inappropriate to so many people. Matter of fact, for me now, it's basically I keep it secret as much as possible. There's groups you can go online, you can YouTube, you see they have 10,000 people doing this in Bodh Gaya and so on. And I go, how horrifying. There's 10,000 people calling up their demons and their neurosis, and it's outrageous. So for me, it shouldn't be engaged in unless you're really struck by it, or dedicated to it, or really committed to it, and ready to deal with it. So.
I'm just going to bring in the alchemical aspect of it all too, because alchemy has been mentioned. And when you're talking about dismemberment of the body, that's an alchemical process, and we need to and dissolution demands synthesis is kind of how I open this, actually, the Jung quote, which, we can argue about Jung too. But the dissolution creating the need to reintegrate, possibly, we could say, right? But you need to let it go. That's kind of the big thing, right?
Yeah, we break it down into the basic 5 elements, and then we reassemble, just as the shamans may do. But in this case, we're reassembling as a enlightened being, and generally it's a feminine. It's a dakini. It's either the red or the black, a cosmic dancing feminine form. And you not just taking on the form, but you attempt as best you can to take on the consciousness of that beingness, the awakened consciousness, always with a view to bodhicitta, which is the view to help other sentient beings, which is one of the best ways to cut through your own self-clinging, of course, is think about somebody else for a change. So it's a beautiful practice, but it's advanced.
It's beautiful. We have a question from the audience. This is from Lolan. I'm uncertain if the chod offerings for spirits are internal or external, or if you can chod for someone else's demons.
Oh yes, there's actually in my school, and I still do teach, as I say, it's available. It's available if you'll contact me online.
Yeah.
I send it out online rather than
TibetanShad.com.
process.
Yeah.
But yes, they even have 5 different. Well, actually, there's 7 in total different healing rituals for others, quite extensive. And people all lie down. I had the good fortune of traveling around for several years with different groups of lamas on North America and Europe and in Asia, where people all lie down, and then you pop their consciousness out for safekeeping, and then you allow their bodies to all be eaten so that their karma can be repaid. And it's quite amazing the things that happen to people while they basically, most of them go into a trance state. It happened to me too. I decided one day that I'm going to lie down while the lamas are all doing it, and I didn't go fall asleep. I just was out, and then they shook me an hour and a half later, and I don't know where I was, but it's a very, very profound spiritual practice when somebody really knows what they're doing. And they have a Bardo practice, which I love. I'm actually just finishing the book on that. The Bardo practices in Tibetan Buddhism are very, very complex and extensive and so on. But in Cho, we have a very short one where you actually can help people that are lost in the intermediary state between births and help pluck them out of their difficulty and place them onto a higher level. So yeah, it's good stuff. Bardo work is fun. Yeah.
And just when you talk about it that way, we also need to talk about the Mormons baptizing the dead. I mean, there's in every tradition there's that kind of thing, and because it's kind of weird and ugly and people don't want to really talk about it, it gets lost again. The narrative thread gets lost. The most important narrative threads get lost in this kind of quagmire of imagery and influence, and the essence gets lost, right? We could in the Bennett term, the essence gets lost.
Well, to go back to what I was saying, and to answer both your questions and the audience question, if you're practicing Che or any spiritual practice from a persona perspective, you're lost. You have to practice this from an essence perspective. And I do guarantee, sadly, being a Buddhist for so many years, the vast majority of people practicing Buddhism and certainly practicing Che are practicing from a persona. So, they absorb this into their construct, because if you really let it penetrate you and penetrate into your essence, then something completely else is happening. I mean, there's even Buddhist Che practitioners who say, well, demons are just they're just a symbolic representation of negativity within your mind. Really? I guess you've never practiced Che, because you will meet the demons if you practice it. Whether you like it or not, you will meet them, and you will meet tree spirits. You'll meet all kinds of things that are beyond conception, not because I'm looking for them or it's fun or it's fancy, but that's just, those dimensions are a reality. So as I say, that it's a question of doing things from essence, not from persona. Otherwise, you're in fantasy land.
There's a question, Scott.
Oh, there's I think we already answered that. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I already mentioned that.
Well, how does the human ego help shape humanity, right? I mean, that's a good question for you, for the speaker now. How does the human ego help shape humanity? That's in the question.
The human ego. Well, from my perspective, we have essence and persona. Persona will, there's true persona and false persona. If persona is an accurate reflection of who you really are, then how you speak, what you say, how you dress, everything that you do is pervading from your essence. And if you're living in persona, and instead of, if you have, like the diagram in the original book that talked about that, you have essence is supposed to be that size and persona this size. But if it's reversed and persona has taken over, then everything you do will be bunged up, because it will be based on, persona is really based on 2 things, which make the world go round, this world we know: loss and shadow. Loss means you're disconnected from the courage of the warrior, the compassion of the lover, the rulership of the ruler, the wisdom of the guru, and the creativity of creative, those 5 elements. So loss is just a disconnect from that. And that's a state that most people live in. So for example, their warrior becomes they're weak. They feel weak. They feel disempowered. They feel a victim. And then when they don't like being in loss, when it's too painful, they'll go into shadow. So now I'm the bully. So now I'll kick the dog or I'll kick other people. So to me, the whole world runs around those 15 basic possibilities. 5 powers with the 5 elements, 5 loss with 5 shadow. So if you're dealing with persona, it's just loss and shadow. Everything you see going on in politics and pretty well everything else, advertising, watch a movie. It's all about loss and shadow. And maybe if it's a really great movie, in the end, you see power emerges. Their essence comes out. So there is as I said, there is a persona that reflects who you really are as true persona, but false persona is just based on what you picked up in school, what your parents taught you, and so on. You're living a completely false life. And, that's why they call this, back when I was a kid, my parents were reading a book called The Revolt of the Middle-Aged Man, because often at a certain stage in life, you realize, well, what is this life I've been living? I'm not living my own life. I'm living somebody else's fantasy. That's basically because you were living in persona. And we have a persona-based culture, 100% persona-based culture, and subcultures may be something else, but the culture itself is about persona, loss, and shadow. How do you control people? All of this mind control, get people into loss, which is into fear and weakness and deficiency, and then you can sell them a solution, or you can sell them shadow too. So, you can be a bully, or you can be a manipulator yourself, and you can be one of the winners and stomp on the losers. So that's it in a nutshell, the whole of psychology. Sorry. 5-minute psychology there.
Thank you very much, Ace. It's really wonderful, very inspiring. And anyone, I think, you have some great courses as well. So I'm also interested in studying with you. Great.
Get in touch with me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Happy New Year and blessings. Great. And now we are going to go to Robert Thibodeau. Robert, are you there? Robert. Wait a minute. He just texted me. Robert?
My talk might have put him to sleep,
No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't see you though.
How do we do the seeing?
Oh, you need to put your camera on.
Where do I? Let me see. It says view.
You should have a
Video.
camera. Is your
Video.
phone? Video, yeah, the video button.
The video button.
Down on
And-
the bottom.
Oh, I see. Let me see the bottom. Oh yeah, video. There it is. Did it go on?
There you go. Great. That's great. Good.
I can't see
So-
me, but
No,
Is
that's
there a-
fine. You're perfect. You're perfect.
is
So
there a view screen or does it
no,
matter?
I see you. You're great. Okay. So I'm just going to introduce you real quickly for people that don't know you. So I met you 20 years ago. I used to come into the Mayflower in Michigan, in
Yeah.
Detroit, north of Detroit. One of the best esoteric best bookstores in the world. Really wonderful, inspiring place.
I've heard.
If you remember, but I actually studied astrology with you. So you were my first
Oh.
astrology teacher. You remember
Nice.
that class? It was a really great class in the Mayflower.
Yeah.
So you're an astrologer, an intuitive psychic reader, and I remember you used to give these great predictions every New Year's. So
I do a lot of predictive astrology. I'm an astrological consultant. It's probably how I keep the bookstore going.
right. So so we want to hear your so what is astrologically in store for us this year?
Well, before we talk about astrology, I want to say a couple.
Absolutely.
Somehow, I probably shouldn't have done it, but I got on right about 7 o'clock and I listened to all this, and you're trying to do an awful lot. Like it's really great what you're trying to do, and everybody has great presentations that are all over the place. So, but it gave me a lot of thinking, one of the thoughts I have is before we go into the astrological predictions of a possible new renaissance or the end of the world, or why can't like all these drones? I mean, it's my consideration that we're already on Mars and that all the UFOs are the United States governments or in China and Russia. And all the drones could be holograms for all we know. We don't even know. So what do we do as individuals to get through this unbelievable Dionysian Orphic chod, they call it different ways, this disintegration, this meeting the lesser and greater guardian of the threshold, in a sense that when you really meditate or you get initiated or you die, your physical and your emotional and your mental bodies separate. And either you go crazy or you get disintegrated back into the elements of both the physical and the etheric, and you get rid of your desires, and your soul goes through these pilgrimages through the planetary spheres. Different people describe it differently. But if you think of like Dionysius being cut in pieces, and the Titans trying to eat them, and then they fall onto the earth. And some people say that even at late 1800s, like it was still happening. And then we have this idea that somehow we're immortal because we've tasted of the eternity. So this is a lot of problems, and there's a lot of different schools that have different ways of approaching a knowledge of the self and the world and the true nature of thinking. And so this is a huge problem. So how do we know when we hear a good talk or counseling or a speech or a song, or we're inspired or we're scared over some threatening information or event? And I think that when you hear these kind of things, these programs, you try to pick the gold out, and if it enters into your action and your will, then if what you're experiencing here and hearing enters into your action, then you'll find out if it works or not. And what's happening to a lot of us is that we're being dissected and disintegrated and cut in pieces already, so that some of us have a sense-bound thinking. Our intellect is completely trapped by materialistic weight, measure, number, and weight. And other people have escaped their intellect one way or another, either through meditation or yogic techniques or Gurdjieffian, So and then other people are stuck and when you're stuck in your head, there's a tendency for fear unless you have a tremendous selflessness, The Christians tried to pull that off by not I, but the Christ within me. But then not I, but the Christ within me, not I, but the Christ within me, not I and you, but Christ within me. There's a little bit of an ego trip that comes in there. And I like the Tibetan Buddhist idea of emptiness practice. But I've synthesized all this stuff out. I mean, you can fall into the lower third of your body rather than the upper third, and you fall into shame and blame and feelings, and somehow people get aggressive with their head, their willpower to like demand that their feelings are real, and you have to put up with them, and you can get paid for thousands of hours of counseling, just sitting there with the person talking and sharing their feelings. And do we have a system that can bring us truth and love? Without suffering, there is no compassion. And without compassion, that we'd have to go the way of truth. And truth is that the truth might be that there is no self worth fighting for, and that the separate self, acting out of separateness, is the cause of all suffering. So if we think of ourselves as spirit, soul, body, in the spirit, we can find a oneness and an infinite co-creativity and an infinite plethora of language, and whether it's alchemy or theosophy or Steiner or Tibetan Buddhism or Hinduism or Brahmanism or Zoroastrianism or astrology or tarot cards or Jungian psychology or Freud. Freud's good sometimes, by the way. And in awe and everything, I'm in awe myself about that book. Gurdjieff, I mean, people demand you say it a certain way, but Gurdjieff, whatever it is, I understand he was a Russian ambassador to Tibet, so he had a lot of Tibetan stuff. So, okay, what am I saying to you, the listener who just tuned in to me? I'm saying this to you. This is what I'm saying. Robert Thibodeau, astrologer and crazy wisdom guy. I'm saying that there's three of us, and that one part of us is connected to the whole universe, past, present, and future. And it's the great matter, mother. And when you take a look at the great mother in the universe, you see all that suffering. It's really love. when you really see the universe, whether you're high or, I mean, I discovered a whole trick, all these drugs out there and everything, and medications and ways of eating and yogic techniques to get high. I discovered a new one. And I guess people forgot. Kissing. You can get high and open all your chakras through a good hug or kiss. Willie Nelson even knows that. If it doesn't work for you, obviously you have the wrong person to kiss. Try kissing yourself, maybe. I don't know. So, but I think that we're connected to everything and nothing, and we have a mind. There you go. That's the secret. Everything, nothing, and a mind. We're connected to the whole universe, the great mother, Mater. It's a love fest, but we've screwed it up so bad it looks like torturous suffering everywhere. Without suffering, there's no compassion. Without compassion, we have to go the way of truth. And what's truth? There is no self worth fighting for, because you're gonna die. And then the worst shock about dying, you didn't die. And you're still here, but you don't have a body. And proof that there's reincarnation and karma, which unless you have reincarnation and karma as a working hypothesis, you don't have to believe in it. But I think one of the proofs about it is that look at all the older people who are still having conversations with people who are dead and debating them. And, so I won't get into that right now unless somebody asks me to, but I want to say that we're connected to everything, nothing, and a mind. And the emptiness practice or the nothingness practice, when they say awe and everything, well, the everything's the great mother. And the awe, when you're one in the spirit, not looking at the oneness, by the way, my brother, not looking at the oneness, that you're one with everything, there is no you. There's nothing to report. There's an incredible at one-ment. Plato thought it was at one-ment, and Neoplatonists tried to capture all that too. And it went into the Hermetic a little bit. And the Catholic Church came along, didn't let anybody read for 1,000 years, from 450 to 1400. They didn't let anybody read. And they turned it into atonement and original sin rather than original blessing and at one-ment. So in the spirit, we're one. In the matter, we're separate. We have a unique expression of the oneness. And then between everything and nothing, we are the children of the great mother of everything and the great father of oneness. I go to the Father in secret, Jesus says, or silence. So in the silence or the no self or the oneness, the no moving and the everything moving in the universe, the great mother and father, they're still effing around and having intercourse. And we are the children of the everything and nothing and the silence and the noise of this world. And I think people are going crazy. And I think that Steiner was totally right when he said that the modern disease, as we get past the year 2000, the modern disease would be hysteria and panic. And that people would think all this stuff is happening when really nothing's happening by the time they die. Or she leaves. Or he leaves. So I say we're everything, nothing in a mind. I think that we're already on Mars. And this is just my opinion. I think that all the UFOs are, like, remember the United States government announced years ago, 10 years ago or something, they were spending millions and millions of dollars on propaganda for the American people. Where'd it go? It's still here. So like the distraction is that you're not going to turn everything off and meditate for 5 or 10 minutes in silence. I think it's only 3 to 5 minutes a day if you stay in silence and you silence your mind, witness and watch the stillness of your heart, what your heart's trying to say. So the heart is the middle way. The heart is the Christ that's crucified between the two, right? The sense-bound thinking and the intellect up here. And the world is being run by intellectuals that have no heart. The heart is the wisdom of the body and the door to the inner worlds. So one of the reasons you have all these wild people on your shows, in my guess, and wild people that I know, just like that, is that they're very colorful and they're often coming from, by accident, I think they're coming from the lower third of their body and emotions and feelings. But really, when we're in our head and we want to escape, we try to go down, but we get past the heart into the sex and the digestive and food and the willpower and the action, and always doing sports and always going somewhere and always busy in tennis shoes forever. And then up here is the intellect that tries to manipulate everything and watch the money every day. I know people, all they do is they watch their money. That's all they do. They spend their whole life watching their money and they think they're going to have a better life next life. We're creating the world. We are creating the weather in the world, but it just takes time to see that. And it's very subtle, I mean, some people have the power to erase a rain cloud, you know, and look at how much trouble Reich went to do that. But I know meditating, I mean, I've been with Tibetan lamas and other people that huge storms would come and it wouldn't rain on our picnic table when it rained to the right and left. And I was just going, what? And I mean, on and on and on. I could tell stories that would rival anybody's stories that I've heard so far today. So how do we cut through? How do we cut through that all of us who are listening and may listen to this can be immediately empowered? If you can't get something that stops your intellect from rattling, a death rattle, if you can't hear and the word or some kind of feel for it, a music for it, you know, if it enters into your action, if it inspires you to experience it at 1 minute at a greater level, you know, I mean, you could do it if you're a sex addict. All you have to do is quit sex for a while and try to keep breathing it up to your heart. If you're stuck on watching the TV and all the electronic, we're like electronically, magnetically girdled around the earth with these satellites, and that human beings don't own the whole earth. We don't own the whole, we don't share in this. And that greedy guys who are intellectual, mostly guys, who are intellectually really smart, can own everything, and then they can put missiles up there and just blow them up, and don't worry, they disintegrate in the atmosphere, and we're having trouble breathing down here, and it's hard to grow gardens, and all the water and air is being polluted, but we want to talk about extraterrestrials. We want to go to Mars when we can't go to our own frickin' backyard, dude. Do I sound like I'm from Detroit and I play guitar? Yes. Oh, by the way, I make a lot of music. I have hundreds of songs. And I have talks. The great thing about getting me in my YouTube station is you can turn me off whenever you like. And if you like, you can turn me on. So this is an introduction. I always feel like I have to say something that will cut through to, if you can practice that, you're connected to everybody. And when you see, and we have to learn to divine the divine in each other. Divination is to divine the divine in each other. And we can see the Christ or the Buddha or the Hermes, three wise men, not the three stooges, not the three musketeers that are intellectual. The three wise men follow the star to Isis, the virgin, gives birth to Hermes Horus, known as the Good Shepherd, the divine Pymander, pre-Christian, the Good Shepherd, writes the Sermon on the Mount, where virtue overcomes non-virtue. These are just words. If you want to slow it down, you have to maybe try to listen to my talks. But if you want my you know, thousands of years trying to figure this out in lifetimes, I would get the book Isis Unveiled by Blavatsky and The Secret Doctrine and The Key to Theosophy and Voice of the Silence, where she talks about the triple Kundalini and the mother Kundalini from the heart. There's a fire that descends, there's one that rises, there's a threefoldness, there's one from the heart. And all the Crowley guys that put her down, well, the Crowley guys that put her down, okay? And Crowley had a lot of people suffer around him. Gurdjieff had a number of people suffer, but he's very smart, very wise. And like Trungpa, they had car accidents and they were in pain. And it's a whole long story that I don't have time to get into. But I would get that. I'd get Rudolf Steiner's Outline of Occult Science and Foundations of Esotericism, try to figure out what he's saying. You can go to Rudolf Steiner Audio, Rudolf Steiner Archives, and they'll read the book to you, or you could read it for free, or you can go to Mayflower Bookshop, mayflowerbookshop.com, and find out how I can link you up. But you don't want to need me because I'll make you work, you know. But that was part of Gurdjieff's thing, was to work. But it was also part of Steiner's and Blavatsky. All these people are really great, and we can't kill off Yogananda. You look how good those people are. They always seem a little dumb to me that they don't understand why things are so bad, but they're really beautiful people and virtuous. And Vivekananda, Swami who gave talks at the United Nations, and you know, I used to put them all down because I had the one right thing. And now that I've gotten older, I realize every one of them had a piece of the broken grail. They had a piece of the broken grail, and each one of us has a piece. And if we can divine the divine in each other and not get caught up with our torturous stories of suffering and me, mine, and I, and if it's not about me, it's about my kid, it's about my lover. It's always about some separate ego, and it's a tough thing because when you're in pain, you're in pain. Yeah, and so what's happening now is we're going through 24, 25, 26, 27, all the way to 28, where there's an interesting couple grand trines in astrology. And what we're walking into next year is a Saturn conjunct Neptune, Now, there's friends of mine who just approach this astrologically, like Ray Merriman. He's got a really cool book on just money and economics, all with astrology. And he's talking about this, and a lot of astrologers are talking about it. Actually, I am talking about it. Jupiter and Saturn conjuncted in Aquarius, or they conjuncted an air sign 2020 on the solstice. And what we're having now is Jupiter square Saturn. Jupiter's leaving Saturn on Christmas. And we're walking into a Mercury just recently hit the Jupiter Saturn. So people are starting to get kind of serious about what's going on in the future and what happened in the past. The past is no good unless we get wisdom out of it. The present is the child of the past and the mother and father of the future. But the present is what we can change to change the future. I think there's possible that you can live into the future and you're not going to matter until the future. It is possible. Most initiates are working with the 3 lifetimes, usually the past, present, future. So we're walking into Saturn Neptune conjunction almost in 25. A lot of people say it's going to happen. And we're looking at Saturn Neptune really conjuncting and in 2026. We're also looking at Pluto going into Aquarius and Uranus going into Gemini and Neptune going into Aries with Saturn. And those 3 changes of sign are terribly associated with the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War that we had, World War II, and even one, really, if we want to hook it in. And we're looking at when I started to bring up a psychic civil war many years ago that the United States was facing, people thought I was a little crazy. And I think that if we look at the Holy Grail, the idea of T.S. Eliot's wasteland and the Holy Grail, that we're entering in a wasteland, that the king and the land are no longer one. The father principle is screwing the whole thing up. We've lost the mother principle because the mother principle is compassion, and without suffering, there is no compassion. And we've lost the ability to be individuals that are honorable, that you're supposed to love your mother and father, but who's your mother and father? Because your mother and father are your mother's father's father's, all the way back. And to say nothing of the reincarnating ego coming in and picking the parents. And we have the karma of this biological thing where Jesus said, when they asked Jesus, did you come? I'm only using that as initiation knowledge, not pushing Christianity. Did you come to bring peace? And he said, no, I came with a sword to separate the mother from the daughter and the father from the son. And this was to wreck the bloodline and to find each other as brothers and sisters spiritually. And so I'm saying the core of what I'm saying, because we don't have a lot of time, and I'm saying a lot of things like everybody else did, so that people can ask maybe a good question, or even a bad question might lead me to a good answer. So, or vice versa. I don't know. You can have somebody who's really crazy and mean and bad in front of you, and it might spark you to do good things. It's nice to have somebody who has a love for everything and divines the divine in everyone. And what did Jesus say? Love your enemies. There is no permanent heaven and hell, although it seems permanent. And I've chosen out of free will that there is no demons, there's no devil outside of ignorance and delusion, and there's an inner and outer stupidity, and there's like a going forward, backward, there's going up and going down, and there's going right and left. When you get to the transept of the Gothic cathedrals that the Templars built, the Templars never had communion, by the way. They said they were always in communion. And they had a big red cross over their heart, the middle way of Buddha, the heart. The heart spells earth. Heart has earth has ear in it. I figured out in my meditations that the heart is the 3rd ear. If thy eye be single, thy whole body's filled with light. Jesus says, borrowing the Hindu, India, Tibetan, eye of Shiva, 3rd eye, single eye, the 3rd ear. We have to listen with our hearts. It's the middle way between the upper and lower worlds. There's nothing wrong with sex if you have love. There's nothing wrong with intellect if you serve the heart. The heart they discovered there's neural cells in the heart, and that the heart is capable of thinking. That's the next step in evolution, is the heart is going to become the middle way. All the spiritual teachings like all the metaphysical teachings, tarot and numerology and all that stuff, alchemy, magic, that's all like, that's all like Neoplatonism hiding from the persecution of the Catholic Church. If you read The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly Hall, all that stuff is Neoplatonism. Blavatsky says that all of her works are Neoplatonism fleshed out, and Manly Hall somewhere in there mentions Steiner, mentions Blavatsky. He read it all, and he mentions Neoplatonism, that it's all. I'm convinced that Neoplatonism had it all, but you had to do work on yourself, and here's another thing that wasn't mentioned much tonight: purification. Ultimate purification is your mind. But the body helps when you just, AA knows it. They're kind of
I'm sorry to interrupt. We have a couple of questions for you.
Oh yeah, let's jump.
Yeah. So one first is still asking your specific predictions. Also, does the zodiac that you just mentioned mean a war is coming? And also question about Trump's inauguration. Do you think it's going to happen?
Yeah. Trump has a lot of President Trump to be and was. I've been right about my predictions of astrology for many, many years, and I was off on this last prediction. Even though I knew it was going to be a tough prediction, I had missed something, and it stared me right in the face a couple of weeks before the election. Trump, in one of his talks, they asked him why he was like not killed or shot, and worse things happened. He said, "I don't know. Maybe it was the finger of God." Now, in astrology, the finger of God is the Yod position. You get two planets that are sextile and midpointing this opposition of a planet. What Trump's Mars ascending sign is like in the Neptune and Pluto were opposing it. He has the finger of God, Yod position. He's like some kind of character of destiny and karma. Whether you like him or not, doesn't matter. We have no choice at this point, right? And I mean, most people don't have any choice. And if you can see the good in everything or where it's going, that's in art. So anyway, I think he does have this planet transit of Uranus messing around with his Mars ascending sign. And he has to be very careful. There's no doubt about that, whether it's his health or trouble in the crib, the love relationship, or how many people hate him and how many people over love him, but in the wrong way. You can be loved in the wrong way where they want to give you sugar all the time. Sugar is associated, of course, with slavery. The Native American Indians couldn't make the sugar. They got too high, and they brought the blacks from Africa and that sugar. Dick Gregory and I had figured that out a long time ago, that sugar is associated with victim stories and woundology, psychology, and always lost in your story and never get to be present or working with co-creatively with the future. So I think that Trump is, at this point, I don't want to make a hard prediction. You can get in trouble for these things, and also you could be wrong, but I think it's good to be wrong sometimes. It keeps you humble, and but I think that he's got a number of really good aspects, and it's going to be all up until about July, June, July. He's going to be doing a lot of good, and then of course, like look at how smart he is. I mean, again, I'm talking objectively. Everybody's picking on him and taking shots at him and criticizing him. We're trying to jump on the wagon to make a bunch of money. And the good guys with him and the bad guys all look bad. And so what does he do when he's getting under attack? He starts appointing all these wild, crazy people to positions, and everybody's attacking them instead of him. Right? It's pretty wild. He's pretty smart. They're all those presidents, Biden, Bush, they're all way smarter than meets the eye. So as for war, we are so, if you go listen to Chomsky, again, this is a guy that I've debated and hung out with a little bit way back. And I've hung out with a lot of really cool people. When you're a good astrologer, you get to hang out with a lot of cool people, whether it's like rock stars or political people or vastly wealthy people that counsel presidents. It's in Tibetan lamas and Hindu guys. And oh my gosh, it's really, that's one of the great things. If you're solid minded, it's really worth studying astrology because sense of timing. And Henry Ford II used to tell me that the timing was uncanny. But he knew that sometimes you could make a prediction of the stock market, but right on that time it would go way up or way down. And so either you're right or you're exactly opposite, but you had the timing right. That's a trick with astrology, because in my book, Astrological Aspects of the Art, where I talk about a lot of spiritual things too, I try to put it not only astrology, but I make a big theosophy in Tibetan Buddhism and Rudolf Steiner and all these things. I try to link up spiritual astrology, but see, all the astrological aspects have a higher and lower octave. So like the Saturn Neptune that's conjuncting coming up for the next few years, and when Saturn moves forward, Neptune's going to stay between the Uranus Pluto, and that's where we're really going to have a breakthrough in 26, 27, 28, all the way to 2030, 2040. We very well, if we don't destroy the planet, we're going to probably be peopling Mars or somewhere else. And it's insane, because once we leave the planet and we lose the health of the planet in the water and air, we're going to metamorphosize if we're lucky. Otherwise, we're mutating and growing ears on our third eye so we can hear a little better what we see. We'll have some kind of eyeball will come out of our heart. Some people would just have a third breast and get milked from the middle, you know. I mean, it's going to be really weird. So, but it takes a long time for that. And we're kind of like in the new Atlantis at this point. When Atlantis fell, only the Sun Oracle survived. And the Sun Oracle is the real Christ or Hermes or Mithras or Apollo or Athena or Artemis, Zoroaster. When we say what's the real one is our connection to universal mind, that we have a heart and mind that through the breath, like not only like you who are listening, you're listening with your head, but what if you were to go and the perception were to ride the breath to your heart, and that you tried to listen to me with your heart as well as your head? Because real spiritual knowledge, my friend, isn't just stuff that I say that you can repeat, or what other people have said earlier that you can repeat. Real spiritual knowledge is that you get something you can repeat, but you also have this in-breath to the heart so that the heart experiences what you're saying. Because when you're in your heart, you can, with an awakened mind, your mind is kind of like seated in your heart with pure awareness, and your head goes empty like Sherlock Holmes. Watson, did you hear it? And you can hear if the person's good or not, if they're true, or if they're just, a lot of people have teachings that make them money or bring them ego comfort or something. It's all good in the long run. It's just not good in the short run. So I think that Mayflower Bookshop and me and my book on tarot cards and my astrological aspects, anything that I do, these talks, it's all to try to give it away so that you can learn to think this way and feel this way. And it's the head and the heart, but it's the breath that weaves the head and the heart as two wings of your soul. And when you can experience that that's possible and feel it, as well as hear it so you can repeat it, you're kind of on your way. Now, whether there's going to be, there's very possibly could be a limited nuclear war because they want to frickin' test the weapons and buy new ones. The whole Ukraine thing, if you take a really good look at it, who's making money on all this stuff? Take the greed and money out of the war, and there goes the war. Take the greed and money out of everything we need, like medical stuff and everything you need to survive, like good food and air and water. You take the greed out of that, the profit out of everything we need, and it's a bit of a problem. And so I thought most of my life, my brother, I thought that I should help the poor. You go to trick or treat looking for candy, healthy candy. Help the poor, trick or treat. You have a problem here because we need to help the rich. The rich are ignorant. They're destroying the planet. They buy sex, but they can't buy love. The Beatles knew that. See, we need an intelligence and a spiritual knowledge that will arrest the materialistic intelligence. We need spiritual knowledge that when you hear it, it's like Zen, like Osho Zen. You hear something, you go, like that one guy, he said a few things, I forget his name, Steve or something. he was bringing up all these historical and literary connections, and I think narrative. I forget what he called it. Narrative. I tried to write down. I was listening too much. Narrative threads or something, and I think that that's what we're doing. We want to connect everything else, but see, if you say too many things, people have to go do homework, and they don't want to do homework. They're just going to turn the channel to the next guy doing what you're doing. And so we're always indulged as long as it comes from outside of you, it's materialistic. Unless you have a radical stillness that you can sit in the stillness to feel it out and do your homework, the integrating it with the experience you have and the knowledge you have. By the way, if you hear grunting and noises like somebody's having sex under the table here, that's my dog. He wants to get out. It's not.
So I'm gonna, it's
it's
great.
not me.
So I get
I just did that for an entertaining little segue.
So I get Steve, if you don't mind, he has his hand raised, and I'm going to open it up now to any questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely. I might have to let my dog out while they're asking the question.
Okay.
Or should I? No, go ahead. Go ahead, ask your question. I'm going to.
Well, two observations and a question. One is that when you were talking about the third eye emerging and stuff like that, that's Olaf Stapleton, Last and First Men, a great book. Everybody should read it. The other thing is when you're talking about Blavatsky and Atlantis and all in Plato, Plato only got translated in the 1870s. And again, we have to trace that little thread from Plato getting translated and the Atlantis thing coming out in public. There were supposedly groups of people in the United States when Plato got translated and the book started going around. They were Plato clubs meeting, discussing these things. Blavatsky comes out of that. The question is, you say you know a lot of songs, you've written a lot of songs. Can you sing us one? And don't think too much. Sing us a song.
Many things I sought I could not find. Many things I found I could not bind. Many things I bound I could not free. And many things I freed returned to me. I have to have a guitar in my hand, and I have a ton of songs. I just came out with two new songs, but I can sing you one, and I've done it before. But with guys like you, I make you pay. You're too smart-assy. You're too smart-assy, but you're smart.
Sing one.
Sing one. I just did,
Okay, that was a chant. That was a kind of a poem, but thank you.
Well, the thing is, it's nice to have a guitar in my hand because I write songs, and remember Yogananda's one? I am the bubble, make me the sea. I am the bubble, make me the sea. Wave of the sea, dissolve in the sea. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you. Louis has his hand up.
But the thing is that it's not fair that you just ask me questions, and I have a question, but I'll save it.
So, Louis, you have a question there? Let me unmute yourself.
And also,
yes, I have a question, please. So is 2025 going to be a good year as far as the war in the Ukraine ending and the conflicts in the Middle East, and in a general sense, is it going to be a positive year? Is my question to you, Mr. Robert.
Mr. Robert, yeah, come on.
I couldn't pronounce your last name, so forgive me.
Thibodeau. I want to say that to Mr. Steve, pretty cool guy actually, that if you read Cosmic Memory by Rudolf Steiner and his outline of occult science or esoteric science, he has a different kind of argument than Blavatsky about Atlantis. But whether or not there was an Atlantis, there are obviously great civilizations. I mean, Egypt, Plato and Socrates, they said they got all their information from Egypt, and Egypt had Atlantis too. So I want to say that whether or not we believe in Atlantis, we can see now we're materialistic, so we believe in aliens. But before we believed in higher intelligences that didn't have bones, and they come in our dreams more, And so I think people should investigate for themselves. And I don't care if you don't believe in Atlantis. I have no issue with that. I don't care if you don't believe in anything. But if you don't believe in everything, nothing, and a mind, if you don't believe you have a physical body, an emotional body, and a mental body, and there's a fourth one that's connected to everything, nothing, and a mind, and then we have a spirit, that I that's how I cut the pie up. And we have different levels of consciousness. If I only loved you for your intellect, we may not have good money-making relationship, or if in the sense of my lover, we won't have a lover. So it goes on like that. So the war, okay. So I think that I think it's very possible. Astrology is a science of possibility, tendency, probability, and it's not. There's no ultimate. Nobody can predict the future for certain, but people have really good batting averages. I happen to have a good batting average, and you can go look me up if you want about all that. And but again, mayflowerbookshop.com and on YouTube. I'm predicting that I'm pretty sure that Trump is actually going to pull off stopping the war, and I hope he stops a whole bunch of them. And it's going to be very hard to avoid inflation, but temporarily he might do it because they just print money and make things happen. You just can't make things happen forever. And the Saturn Neptune is this legalization of drugs and people like that are way too drugged out without having metaphysical books. You shouldn't be drugged out unless you have books from the Mayflower. You know, Tim Leary was smart. When I used to debate him and he'd come to my bookstore, he was smart enough to know that you should have all those books or you shouldn't get high on any drug or kissing. Duh. You know,
my friend inherited Tim Leary's Gurdjieff and a Crowley box.
Wow.
Leary gave him his signed copy that I believe Leary inherited from Dion Fortune.
Oh, that's beautiful. You do have a lot of interesting, really beautiful facts. I was with Gaelic Rinpoche, Tibetan Lama guy, when Tim Leary called him because he thought he was going to die any minute, and he just dropped acid. And I'm with this Tibetan Lama guy that's taking over Chogyam Trungpa's place, and I'm in the living room. We're shooting the shit. And CHIT, Sat Chit Ananda, you know, when the eternal being of silence and the ever-changing opportunity for virtue happens, shit happens. CHIT. So I'm with him, and he goes, "This is that Tim Leary guy that you know." You know, and I go, "Oh." I said, "Hi." So yeah. So you should have metaphysical books with you when you're getting high or drunk or whatever. And I tell my musician friends that drink too much or get high, I tell them that they should like never get angry, and they should clean the house up, and they should never beat up women. And you know, I mean, you got to be sweet about it, you know.
Beat a woman up once in a while.
I'm not even
kidding. Just kidding.
I'm not even going to joke about it because they're going to run the world and they're going to know you.
They already run the world. They just let us pretend.
No, they don't.
Yes,
money,
they
guns, and Bibles. Money, guns, and Bibles, and is how they run.
And lawyers.
And how they screw the world is with porn
and vagina. So please, all right.
Porn, gambling,
yeah,
and spectator sports is how they kind of wreck the world. And I could debate this. You know, we shouldn't be spectators to sports and music. We should be players. And if you play the sport, we would have cheaper tickets when we go to, you know, so. And we don't want to gamble on ourselves, do we? We want to go to, there'd be no spectator sports on TV if there wasn't for gambling. The casinos admitted that. I used to say it on the radio when I used to be on the J.P. McCarthy show. And what's that guy, Howard Stern? I used to be on his radio. Yeah, I was on his show for a year way in the early days. And I always say that the gambling is what supports TV sports. And the casinos finally came out and admitted that. Now, again, for you listeners who are actually listening, you don't have to believe in anything that I'm saying. I hope that I spark you to inquire further. And there's a lot of references that are being made, like Dion Fortune, for instance, or like Lady Harris, who did the artwork for Crowley's Tarot deck, studied Rudolf Steiner's art painting classes. And so it's important to go kind of figure out. A lot of people have tried to like better this world with their arts and their fantasies, and you know, I think that there's nothing wrong with all these things as long as you can better your life with it. Otherwise, you should admit you're just entertaining yourself and you're on a drug that's probably better than most drugs. But it's entertainment, and it may not be education. So, and it may not be edifying for your future tomorrow. And if you can't enlighten them or educate them or edify them with some nourishment for their journey, then I'm all for entertainment, but usually I like getting paid for entertainment because that is I'm saying that as a joke. Entertainment that's good is really free. Of course, you can buy flowers, but who grows them? I do.
Cool. Thank you very much, Robert. Is there anyone else has any comments or questions before we end for the day?
So I have another question. Is the general consensus that 2025 is going to be a good year?
Oh yeah. I think I think there's no more in the samsaric worlds in the Tibetan Buddhist view. No matter how sweet it is, there's always bitter, and no matter how bitter, there's always sweet. I think it's going to be a really great year if you're aligned right. Like I know guys that are making a lot of money on investing in robots and drones and the war machine. Mr. Fuller jokingly said, if you want to make a lot of money, invest in the war machine. I can't invest in the war machine. I went to my bank and asked them what their investments were and changed banks because they had too many that were in. I didn't want the karma. Like when things happen to you and you don't think you deserved it, my understanding of karma is that we do things that hurt people, but we didn't know we did it. So things happen to us and we don't know why they're happening. It's not fair. And again, if you don't have reincarnation and karma, it's a little bit tricky. And it's worth the whole thing about what's going on with this show. There's an inner world that's worth exploring and that it can help you to better your outer world. I think that has been said in different ways. And I'm bad at names. Steve.
I'm gonna jump in with my prediction for next year because I think that it's going to be a good year too. I think that what's happening is what's happened in the last few years has really created an atmosphere for people to disengage from the bullshit.
Yes.
And they're learning to think, as I said before, to think in different categories. It's no more left and right. It's no more orange man bad. It's no more liberal is liberal. Liberals aren't liberal. It's no more P. Diddy is the greatest rapper in the world. You know what I mean? It's not so. So this year might really give people an opportunity to step outside the imposed categories and create their own cosmology. Like Tim Leary would ask people when he met them, "What's your cosmology?" The cosmologies have been narrowed down. People are beaten to death by media and sports and things like that to have a narrative that is not their own. It's a controlled narrative. So this year, I think there's going to be a lot of people disengaging from the system. It shows that mass media ratings are so low and Disney movies are in the toilet. People have disengaged from that if it was ever real to begin with. So I think it's going to be a good year where people have realizations for themselves, and some people are going to stay asleep, to talk, as Gurdjieff said, about waking up, being awake. So I think it's going to be a good year. That's my prediction. Thank you. And if everybody else has a prediction for this year, it would be nice.
Thank you. That was good.
I would like to ask one more question, please, of Lama Jinpa about karma and the comment that Robert made about karma. Because I feel like that also works in reverse. I have a good life. This present life I have, it's very good, and I feel like I've done nothing in my present life to deserve the gifts of this particular life. And in a joking way, I reflect that I must have done something in some previous existence to deserve the grace that I have in this present one. And that's my, and I don't claim to know anything about, I'm not a read man. I cannot quote any philosophers or anything like that. I just have an inherent belief. I read one line in the Bhagavad Gita about that which is can never not be, which I thought about for a long time, and it can be correlated in science because you cannot destroy anything under the sun. You can only transmute it. So that feeds my belief that not in an egotistical way, mind you, but that the spark within me is eternal and it's a forever spark. And I don't claim to understand it, mind you. It's just a basic belief I have. And that's my question.
What was the question?
Restate the question again, Louis. Really?
I'm sorry, about karma working in reverse, whether you might be able to reap rewards for some good deeds you did in another life.
Yes, of course. Yeah, naturally that happens. And though whatever you have attained through karma, you want to not just rest on those laurels. It's like, getting your money in the bank, but you're not getting any interest. And well, you're gonna keep drawing money out. And eventually, if you don't invest it, then it does dissipate. So it is definitely possible to go from great karma to crap karma. I mean, we see it all the time. You see great spiritual masters that fall. We see billionaires that wind up penniless, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very easy to get on a slippery slope. But as far as karma, I would say that the most fascinating thing for me, because of being very much influenced by Gurdjieff, as well as I verified through my own experience, so that means it's true for me, whether anyone can accept it or not. I have something called the 30% rule because I'm very much interested in. You can see a pretty good video that I've got. It was made at a conference that I did in Bhutan, talking about light body. If your light body doesn't happen all at once, it just doesn't, come falling out of the sky. It's a very, very gradual development, could be over many lifetimes, etc. But if you reach a 30% development of light body, in other views, transmuted finer energies in your body, you're starting to change the very structure, the matrix of energies within your body, then there is something that can reincarnate. The great proportion, the great majority of human beings, they do not develop anything that could incarnate any more than a flower or a blade of grass or an insect incarnates. It's a collection of different phenomena that come together, and when it falls apart, as Gurdjieff would say, what belongs to the earth goes to the earth, what belongs to the sun, to the moon, to the Bennett called it the soul stuff pool. Things return to this pool. So if you do a certain amount of inner work and development, and that doesn't even have to be part of a tradition, it doesn't matter if you're part of a tradition, just having good heart, good works, good insight, good awareness, self-awareness, being in the body is probably the greatest spiritual practice. The easiest and greatest spiritual practice we can have is actually sensing our body all the time.
That's the Kazjan body, right? By Gurdjieff, the finer body.
So if you get that, because a light body is not one body, actually, there's at least 4 bodies possible. So if you achieve that, then you will reincarnate and you'll have your karma to propel you forward. So yes, karma is at work. Everything that we are right now. They always say, the Buddhists like to say, if you want to understand your karma, just look at your mind now. Where does your mind go? Do you like violence? Do you like sex? Whatever. So this is what you fill your background with, and so it's still there with you. So we have to do a lot of purification. One of the things we do in Tibetan Buddhism, they call it foundation practices, which are basically before you do any of the advanced stuff, you got to do 100,000 of this and 100,000 of that and so on and so on to purify yourself so that when you start doing the deeper practices, you don't run into a lot of problem because you don't have the gasoline, you don't have the karmic good stuff, and you have a lot of crap that you're still, a lot of baggage you're carrying. So yeah, before one embarks on spiritual practice, you have to do a lot of, I say in general in life, you have to do a lot of purification, but purification can happen just through extracting suffering from you. So better to do it consciously rather than just going through the hell. Even then, when you purify, you're going to go through hell. So I 3-year retreat for me, people said, well, how was 3-year retreat? I said, it's nothing but a karmic detox. That's all you're doing. I guess you're accelerating 5 or 12 or whatever lifetimes in that short period of time. To me, it was a true living hell. But a lot of stuff got left behind. So okay, I paid a dues, and I'm glad I did that.
Thank you.
Gurdjieff talked about conscious.
Thank you.
Gurdjieff
you seem like a very beautiful person. So you're very fortunate.
Louis a friend of mine. He's a great guy.
I don't have your natural innate goodness, so I have to do a lot of work. I'm not blessed like you. I'm a schmuck.
Well, don't give me too much credit, but I thank you, Lama. Thank you.
Gurdjieff talks about the conscious suffering, right? And we're talking about purification. I always go back to John Dee. Before John Dee did an Enochian thing with Kelly, he would spend an inordinate amount of time doing purification things, praying that only the white energy comes through, and it's not demons, it's angels, it's good information. So, there is this kind of thing about preparing. And I mean, we can question, does it have to be done in prayer, or can it be done in a kind of, I don't know, is the word non-secular way, or in an individual way? Does it have to be part of a tradition? Probably not, actually, but that's a question I can't answer. But thank you, Louis, for coming in too.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
Basically, Gurdjieff intimated or said that you got to pay your taxes. If you don't pay your taxes, they're going to come for you. So, we have been given this so-called precious human body, this extraordinary opportunity that might be fairly rare in the cosmos in general, in the galaxy. So if we don't pay for what we've been given properly, then it's going to be extracted from us in various ways. and various, because all of our energies are used by the universe. All of the people that die in war, all the, sacred Rosco Ono, as Gurdjieff called it, sometimes wars are just in order to feed the universe with certain kind of energies. We need more human death because human beings are not giving, we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're supposed to be doing prayers for each of the planets every day of the week in order to help maintain these other world orders. But human beings have the capacity to do that, and now we have to pay the hard way through suffering.
One of my favorite quotes is when Giordano Bruno, when people ask me, like, what's it about? I go back to Giordano Bruno, who said, so that the structure of the universe flourishes. And I think that's a really great way to look at, like, why do anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's less, but anyway, I'm good. Thank you, Scott, for doing this. If you're killing it. Are you killing it, Scott?
No, I think I actually have to end the program now, but it's really fascinating. And
you're catching a flight, right, Scott? You're catching a flight out of town?
But anyway,
cool.
The thing is, I really appreciate everyone coming, all these wisdom, Robert, Asa, Alan, yourself, Steve. Thank you, Louis, for your comments and all that. It's really
thank you for having me. Thank you.
Really, it's great. It's a great evening, and everyone, I wish you a happy and blessed New Year.
And thank you, everybody. Everybody was very interesting, and I learned a lot from everybody. And it's really
happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Different perspectives.
I appreciate you all, and I have gratitude, and that's the best I can do.
Wait.
Good night.
Take it easy, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Where's the leave button?